Cole, you know me, always sticking up for the little guy in college athletics. I want the small conferences to get more bids than what they get. But as I'm looking down all of the teams that are playing in the perennial one-bid conferences, Cole, I'm having kind of a hard time finding any of these leagues that even deserve a second bid.
No way.
We'll look down the line and see if we can find somebody who maybe is being a little underappreciated, underseeded, so to speak, when it comes to getting that second bid in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, a lot can change as we have conference tournaments coming up. If some of these best teams in these conferences, the clear number ones, don't perform the way that they should, then maybe we'll get a second team into some of these conferences, or a second team from these conferences into the field of 68, Cole. But I'm not entirely sure that there's a tremendous amount of depth across all of the mid-major conferences in college basketball. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Cole Bryson. My name is Diesel. You Tolos are already in. 20 Tolos already watching the stream on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. At Diesel on radios, where you can find me on Twitter. At The Cole Bryson is where you can find him. You can find us, again, at The Fan Upstate on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Streaming the show live right here, right now. JD already in on the conversation. Conferences deserving two teams in that probably won't get it. He says SoCon should get two bids, especially if the best team doesn't win the conference tournament. Yeah, that's what's going to have to take, honestly, JD. In a lot of these conferences, there's just not a tremendous amount of resume quality wins for the second best teams in these leagues. Part of it is due to not having a whole lot of opportunities, and part of it is due to those that do get those opportunities just haven't shown out. Cole, looking at 7 conferences expected to receive multiple bids into the field this year, 13 bids projected for the SEC, 9 for the Big 10, 8 for the Big 12, 4 for the Big East, 5 for the ACC, 3 for the Mountain West, and 2 for the West Coast Conference. Outside of that, everybody's going to get one, and you better like it.
I'm thinking about the possibility now, Diesel, of the ACC only getting 2. I mean, as bad as they
possible.
are this year, what if we just say, look, here's what we're going to do.
Saying Louisville doesn't deserve to get in?
Louisville deserves to get in, but I don't know about other than Louisville, maybe 3 get in. But maybe my thoughts are shifting towards when it comes to college basketball and how many teams get in from each conference, maybe my thoughts are shifting towards it being a year-by-year decided-on venture. So there's no rules set in stone, Diesel. There's no in terms of, obviously, the Power 5 conferences, you have to know how many teams are going to get in. But I just think that there's something to be said about taking this thing on a yearly basis, because if we're being quite honest, Diesel, the SoCon on a down year doesn't deserve a second team. However, you, I, others who have watched the SoCon and covered the SoCon and other good mid-major leagues could say in certain years that the second best team, Diesel, or the third best team from that league or that's whether it be the SoCon or someone else, they should get in. They should have a bid into the big dance. I don't think that will ever happen, by the way. I don't think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
But if I'm just thinking somehow, some way where we can allow this thing to be fluid, maybe let's take it on a year-by-year scenario.
The only thing that I can think of, and I've never been able to get a straight answer, and I've asked multiple of our basketball guests over the past couple of weeks, like, how does a team grow from being a traditional one-bid league to a 2-bid league? And they say things like, it's not set in stone. There is no such thing as a quote-unquote strictly 1-bid league. The problem is, Cole, I think it all comes down to trust. And the committee looks at these smaller conferences, and they don't trust. They don't believe that, for example, in the SoCon this year, a Chattanooga or a UNCG is a quality enough team to go out and get wins in the NCAA tournament. That, to me, is where it comes down to. You can add all this data. You can look at their rankings. You can look at their schedules. You can look at their resumes and their nets. But at the end of the day, the committee doesn't trust that the second best team in the Patriot League, for example, who is 19-12, American University, or for example in the Ohio Valley, SIUE, Southern Illinois University, Evans. I don't even know.
Suey,
yeah. Whoever Suey is, they're a 20-win basketball team, but they also sit at number 228 in the net rankings. So you can be a really good team in that league, but when you now have to push that to a national scale, these selection committee members just don't necessarily believe that there's a whole lot to look at there and trust. Big show coming up for us today. We'll get into March Madness trivia in the next segment. You're going to try to test me. Chad Ochocinco has his list of the 2 hardest things in life to achieve. After hearing this, it might be tough for him to even get number 2 done off of his list. We've got Clemson basketball conversation coming up at 4 o'clock. Where do they stack up among the other best teams in the country? Big-time guest from thebigspur.com, John Whittle, going to join us at 4:20, Cole. But, like I said, I look across a lot of the higher-end mid-major conferences, and when especially you look at the second-best teams, third-best teams in those conferences, yeah, they stack up wins in their own league, but when it comes to how do we think they would perform against the best of the best in college basketball, there's just not a lot of trust there. So
yeah. I also want to throw in, by the way, as you were previewing the show, huge, probably the biggest news of the day, Clemson, Florida State settling. We'll get to that as well later on. And Shane Beamer making an appearance on a stand in a court earlier today, in a courtroom earlier today when it comes to NIL. So a lot of big news. Today's, I don't know why, Tuesday picked to be a busy news day when it comes to sports. But huge news. I mean, like 5 things have broken since I left the house, and we'll try to cram it all in, and a lot of it will have to be in our daily wires coming up at 4:45 as well.
It's funny to get very quickly to that point about the buyout dropping, when the exit fees dropping for Clemson and Florida State, if and when they do choose to leave before that 2036 deadline. Somehow we just naturally pegged the number right on and said 2030, 2031 is when that buyout is going to get low enough that they're going to say maybe now is the time it's worthwhile to pull the trigger. So a deal that maybe they thought the league would keep Clemson and Florida State in for the duration of this deal is really only going to keep them around for about 5 or 6 more years. We'll just have to wait and see, but we'll get into that conversation a little bit later on in the show. Cole, look, I look at the Atlantic 10 as a really good mid-major conference this year. Atlantic 10 pretty good, Missouri Valley pretty good, the American Athletic on paper looks pretty good. West Coast, not the West Coast, but the Big West Conference looks decent. Outside of that, Cole, there's not a ton of second place, third place teams in these conferences that I think could make runs or win games in the NCAA tournament. We'll start with the Atlantic 10, Cole, kind of just go alphabetically and not cover all of them, of course, because not all conferences are deep enough to even really be in this conversation. But I think this one right out of the gate, Cole, is one of the tougher conferences to say that they don't deserve a second bid. You got VCU sitting in at 24-5, George Mason at 22-7, and Dayton at 20-9. Now Dayton is a little bit of a stretch there at 20-9, but VCU at 24-5, they're 1-1 in quad 1 games. They have a road win against Dayton in conference. They have an overtime quad 4 loss against Seton Hall. They are most likely going to be at least if you go just by regular season, the odds-on favorite, best team in the Atlantic 10, probably making the NCAA tournament out of there. Maybe George Mason gets it done in the conference tournament. But if George Mason does do it and VCU is sitting there on the outside, do you look at VCU's resume at 24-5, 500 against quad 1 teams, only having played 2 of them all season long, as saying there is no way that we can keep that team out of the NCAA tournament?
I'm looking at their schedule right now. When you talk about ACC wins, they did defeat Boston College. They did defeat Miami. You look down their schedule.
But a bad BC and a historically bad Miami.
Right, so what is that saying? You look down their schedule, and you don't really see a lot that jumps off the page. Again, not taking anything away from their conference because they have to play their conference schedule. There's nothing they can really do about it. But they lost to Seton Hall, a good Seton Hall team. They lost to Nevada. They went on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They won 5 out of 6, losing to New Mexico, beat the likes of Penn, William and Mary, Colorado State, Loyola, who was a Cinderella a couple of years ago. Remember that, out of Chicago. There's not a lot of quality wins on their schedule. That's the problem. I mean, how many quad wins did you say?
One
Quad
win. They only played two
was,
quad one teams, and one of them was in their own conference.
The quad Dayton. One win was Dayton?
Was Dayton. Yeah, and that was a road win, by the way. But, again, if you have to start, kind of splitting hairs and deciding should this conference get 2 in, that's not going to be enough to get that done. JD on the stream says, Bob Ritchie said the other day it's because the Southern Conference can't go out and buy wins like other conferences. Well, the Southern Conference, every conference needs this. This is not specific to the Southern Conference. Every mid-major conference needs to stack as many opportunities as they can against power conference opponents.
But most years that BC and Miami win would look good.
Well, this isn't most years. This is an historically down ACC.
But I'm saying when they scheduled those games,
sure,
they probably didn't know they were going to be historically bad. Now, you mentioned the quad 1 win over Dayton. Dayton's 20-9, 10-6 in the conference. Dayton lost to North Carolina, by 2, close game. I don't know. I don't know if there's enough. I don't know if there's enough there.
Right. The Atlantic VCU. 10, this is, unfortunately for them, whoever wins that conference tournament is getting in, and they're probably not going to get another. Again, if George Mason gets it done in the conference tournament, would you look at VCU and say, oh, we got to put them in because they beat Dayton in the middle of the season? Probably not. A Dayton that is 10-6 in conference play.
Yeah.
There's just not enough strength there to get that one done. Here's one that, Cole, that a lot of people are going to be looking at and just see the win-loss record on this one and say, ooh, that's probably a really good basketball team. But it's all smoke and mirrors, just like it was in football. Liberty won 23 games this year, 23-6. They played exactly 0 quad 1 teams over the course of the season. Remember, 2 years in a row, Liberty had the worst, as in the very last place strength of schedule in college football, and they got gassed up because they were going, undefeated in the 2023 season. But it doesn't mean what you think it means when you look at just how weak their strength of schedule is.
What's funny is Liberty Diesel, in the latest CBS projection that came out today, Liberty is slated to play Clemson in the very first round, according to the CBS matchup.
Yeah, I think they'll win their conference tournament. I think they'll get in by virtue of that. But if Middle Tennessee State, who is 20-9, second place in Conference USA, wins that conference, do you look at Liberty and say, oh, we got to put that Liberty team in? Probably
23
not.
And what? 23-6?
23-6.
11-5 in conference. It's tough because you look at the conference, and I will say, I think the hard part is, we follow the SoCon. We watch the SoCon. We know that the SoCon's a good league. I don't know that we really know how good or bad Conference USA is. I mean, you're talking about a lot of points being scored by Liberty at certain points throughout the year, but Diesel, you and I, do we know how good Western Kentucky is? They lost to Western Kentucky. Do we know how good Sam Houston is and La Tech, who they lost to? UTEP, same thing. It's just, it's interesting. I would hate to, I guess to your point when you started the segment, I would hate to really have to be the one that dictates whether they do get in or not.
Yeah, Missouri Valley Conference. This one is maybe the most interesting of all that we're going to talk about. Drake at 27-3. They're 1-0 in quad 1 games with an 11-point neutral site win against Vanderbilt. They got this big old check mark in the quad 1 category. They're 4-0 in quad 2. The problem is when they lose to bad teams, quad 3 and quad 4 teams. But Drake is a very good basketball team. That one, I'm going to put a little star beside it. You know what? Just take that one off the page, set it down at the side, and say that one could be a team that needs to get in. Bradley, right on their heels at 24-7. They won a quad 1 game, a 2-point road win against Drake. They got blown out by Washington State. Washington State was a decent team this year. I look at the Missouri Valley and say maybe, just maybe, they get a second team in. But It all depends on how everything else shakes out.
Drake has a really good resume in terms of handling business. I mean, if they were to win the conference, obviously they'd be a shoo-in, but if they didn't, and you said it, who was the other team? Bradley? Let's say Bradley won the conference, Diesel. You look at Drake. They play a bunch of powerhouses. No. I mean, I don't know if you just said how many quad wins. They have, 1-0? Drake has one quad one win. Is
Correct.
That what you said?
Drake beat Vanderbilt. Bradley beat Drake.
Vanderbilt's a good win. And that game was in Charleston earlier in the year in that Shriners Children's Charleston Classic, Diesel. Look, they beat Miami. You said it. Miami's no good, but they did what they were supposed to do in that Shriners Charleston Classic, went undefeated. And Vandy's not a great team, but they're not a bad team. I think that's a good win. So I'd side with you there on the Missouri Valley Conference. It seems like you've got two really good teams there.
Dewey says y'all just hate Liberty, haters. You said hate twice, so I guess Dewey means it. Cole, out of the American Athletic Conference, North Texas 22-6 on the season. They didn't play well against big time teams, but sitting above them, Memphis 24-5. This is by far the best mid-major team in college basketball this year. 6-2 against quad one teams. They beat Missouri at home. They beat Michigan State at a neutral site. They beat beat Clemson on the road, and they beat Ole Miss at home. Memphis is for real. Yeah. Memphis very well could be a Sweet 16 team, and if things fall the right way for them, maybe advancing farther than that.
Yeah, I've watched Memphis a couple of times this year. They're as good as they get right now in terms of mid-majors. I don't think that there's any doubting. Now, North Texas, maybe you can question if North Texas were the runner-up, which they probably will be.
They just didn't have the opportunities that Memphis had.
Right.
I mean, what other mid-major has 8 quad one games?
That's right, 3 compared to 8. That's a big difference. Memphis has handled business, and not only have they handled business, that Clemson win looks really, really good. 24-5 overall, to your point. I think they're holding their own in their conference. I just don't know. It may be a little top-heavy, that conference maybe.
Yeah, now, the one story about North Texas is their defense is pretty good. I mean, it's not elite, but it's certainly top 50. They had the 42nd best defense in the country. Their offense was somewhere in the 90s, I think, the last time I looked. North Texas could be an interesting team, could push for a second bid, but just given the strength of the SEC, if the SEC wasn't going to command 13 entries into this tournament, maybe you see North Texas, maybe you see Bradley getting those second opportunities for their conferences. But, when you got a team as dominant, a conference as dominant as the SEC was this year, it's going to be hard for these mid-majors to get it done. Second best team in the Big West, UC Irvine. They didn't beat a major conference team all year. The West Coast Conference, that one could be interesting as well. St. Mary's, really good. Gonzaga, pretty good. Not what Gonzaga has been in the past. But St. Mary's, should they not win the West Coast Conference tournament, I think they probably deserve to get a second bid in, but again, I don't make those decisions.
Tolos, get involved. You can text the show at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. That is the number that calls the show and text the show. We need your interaction in this very next segment. Already some good interaction on the stream, but Tolos on the text line. Let's pick it up because in the very next segment, I'm going to put Diesel to the test. I also, Tolos, am going to put you to the test, allowing you to assist. Diesel, March is here. I don't know if you know that or not. Newsflash, today's the 4th day of March, and we're going to do a little March Madness trivia in the very next segment. Yes, we're going to get into Clemson and Florida State later in the show, and a lot more coming your way. The best thing for you to do is turn it on and leave it on. is a Tolo Tuesday edition of Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. Good to have you with us on this cloudy day, cool day here in the upstate. Is it got chilly again?
I think it's like our last bad day.
Groundhog's the blame, right?
Yeah, totally.
He said it?
A rodent did this to
It
us.
was a squirrel, the ground, whatever it was.
A marmot.
Stupid groundhog. Yeah, I'm ready for warm weather for sure. But Tolos, need your interaction on this segment. Let's see how smart you sports fans out there are. Diesel is going to go to the test as one of my favorite game shows of all time. Diesel. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. And for whatever reason, I always forget the name of it, but it was where you had the option to phone a friend, and you had the option. There were 2 or 3 other options in there as well. It was long time ago. And
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah, I love that show. I loved it. I was a huge fan of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I don't know.
Was
I
that
think
the
it was
last
the best one.
great game show? Like the last great original game show?
Deal or No Deal was pretty good. Did you like that?
I never watched Deal or No Deal.
I like Deal or No Deal with the briefcase.
But like now, it's like they'll take any sort of washed-up B-list celebrity, throw them on a game show, and said, "Hey, you host."
Yeah, it's true. And it's not. Listen, the thing about it is, none of the ones today even rival the ones of the past. I mean, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I loved it. It was great. It was just classic. And
for me, it was always Pressure Luck. Everybody loved Price is Right growing up.
Good,
it was such a staple. You wake up during the week, if you're homesick from school, 11 o'clock every day, Price is Right was going to be on. And it was so good, so comforting.
It was good,
but
yeah.
Pressure Luck with the whammies, that was it, dude.
JD, look at JD on the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire trivia here. He said you could phone a friend, poll the audience, and 50-50 were the options. You must have watched a lot of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You're right. I just forgot what the options were.
I don't know, with my money on the line, if I want to poll the audience,
poll the Tolos,
who had nothing better to do than to show up for a game show that was probably filming at like 10 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think they know either.
I love it, man. That was a good one. So that's what we're going to do. Regis, yeah, you're right. JD must have been a big fan.
Was that not the show with the British lady? That was like, what was the You Are the Weakest Link? What was that?
I don't remember that one.
You Are the Weakest Link. Goodbye.
That was the name of the show?
No, I'm trying to remember the name of the show, but that was that was called The Weakest Link.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I didn't watch. I watched just enough to know the line, but then it also got hosted by Jane Lynch too. I think I remember it more from the Jane Lynch days.
Yeah, Regis was good, man. He really was. He was tough to beat, and he knew JD must be a aficionado on the game show. Diesel, it's time for us to do our game show, though, a little March Madness edition. You do not get all of the options of polling the audience.
Oh.
Maybe you do. We can maybe think of how we can throw that in there on the text line. 50-50. I don't remember exactly how the 50-50 worked, JD.
They took away half of the options.
Oh, it was just two choices?
Yeah, well, they would, if you still had 4.
Like multiple
choice, A, B, C, or D, they take away 2 of the wrong answers.
All right, so we'll do that. Let's do that then. We'll do the same options as Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
JT says, I'm about to be the weakest link in this trivia. Goodbye.
Firing shots. So you get, there's 10 questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to reduce your phone of friends to 2 from 3. 50-50, I'll give you 1 50-50.
Okay.
And then what was the other one? Poll the audience.
Poll the audience.
Poll the audience. What do you get a peek at the text line?
We could. I mean, I could. We could go by the honor system where I promise you that I won't look.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just don't look
until give it 30 seconds to get answers in from the audience.
So do you want 1 poll the audience, or is 2 more fair? So 10 questions.
We'll go with 1. Let's just keep it simple. Go 1.
All right. So 10 questions. March Madness. You've got, again, to recap, 2 phone a friends. How this works is Tolos. If Diesel chooses to phone a friend, you, Tolos, call the show if you know the answer. 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. Tolos, save that number in your phone. 150-50, 1 poll the audience.
What if none of the audience members knows either?
Our Tolos are smart.
What if they call in and try to sabotage me?
Nobody would ever do that.
Answer?
Nobody would do that.
You would?
Nobody would sabotage. We're going to start easy. Look, I really do think you'll be fine with this. These are not very difficult questions.
I'm not going to need any of these.
I hope you don't. Because, to be honest with you, when I was looking through them earlier, I was like, okay, I think he can get most of these. All right, let's start with question number 1.
Then again, I don't have what I would consider an eidetic memory, like the people who can just see something one time, like photographic memory.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have that. So, like, I can't read a stat sheet one time and then just internalize it forever.
Photographic memory, just kind of, I wish I had that sometimes, just like blink your eyes and you take a mental picture of it. That'd be great. All right, Diesel, question 1. Which team has won the most national titles in the history of the NCAA tournament?
That would be.
Do you need the choices?
Yeah, give me the choices.
A, Kentucky.
Okay.
B, UCLA. C, North Carolina. Or D, Indiana.
It would be UCLA.
You would be 110% correct.
Yeah.
So you're 1-0. I told you these weren't that tough.
Okay.
I think you've got this.
I mean, I know that. I mean, obviously UCLA hasn't won one in a long time. The UCLA basketball program is down bad. But I thought maybe Kentucky had sort of caught them up by a little bit. But it's also been a while since Kentucky has been elite too.
Since UCLA won one?
I'm going to say the 60s.
95.
95.
They've won 11, by the way.
See, Brian Pettit's trying to sabotage me. He says D.
No, he's not trying to sabotage. You just didn't know the answer.
What was answer D?
D was, let's see, D was Indiana.
Indiana. Okay. Indiana. How do they rank down the number of national championships by team?
Indiana, by the way, I don't know exactly how many they have. 5. Indiana has 5. So UCLA has 11. Indiana has 5. So you did very good on the first one.
So it's UCLA 11, Kentucky 8, UConn 6, North Carolina 6, Duke 5, Indiana 5, Kansas 4, Villanova 3.
I like that. Corn Chip says on the text line, I'm still watching Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy if I don't have plans and I'm home for the night. I don't watch those anymore. Question 2. We move on. Diesel's one of those. Good start.
Boom.
Question 2 is, which team has made the most Final Four appearances? A, North Carolina, B, Kentucky, C, Kansas, and D, UCLA. Final Four appearances, Diesel. Who's made the most?
Oh, well, I mean, logic would dictate that it's UCLA because they've won the most titles. So they have been there at least 11 times plus who knows, a handful of times that they haven't made it, that they didn't win the whole thing. I'm going to go. Let me use my 50-50 on this.
50-50,
50-50, because this is a tough one.
Okay, I like it. So you're using your 50-50. I am going to eliminate. The options, by the way, were North Carolina, Kentucky, Kansas, and UCLA. I'm going to eliminate 2, and the ones that I'm going to eliminate are B and C, Kentucky and Kansas. That leaves North Carolina and UCLA.
North Carolina and UCLA.
There's your 50-50.
As UCLA started to fall off, North Carolina got really hot there for a while. I know that they don't have the most number of titles, but I'm going to say the answer is A, North Carolina.
Boom! 2-0. 2-0, off to a really good start.
JD, you got to wait for me to answer the question. I didn't see that.
No, you didn't.
I didn't see that.
But I didn't see it until just now.
Yeah, I was thinking hard here. Steam was coming out of my ears.
So you're 2-0.
Let me answer the question first, just so that you guys don't try to give away the answer.
Yep.
In the stream.
So it's going. I will tell you this: it's going to get more difficult.
Oh no.
As we go.
Oh no.
But you're off to a really good start. So hey, you never know. All right. Question 3: Who holds the tournament record for most points scored in a single game?
Ooh.
This one is difficult. I'm not going to lie to you.
This is individual or team?
Yep.
Individual.
Player. Yep. Individual player.
Okay.
Again, this is the most points in a single game in the tournament.
Okay.
Your choices are A, David Robinson, who played for Navy in 1987. B, Bill Walton. Everybody knows who Bill Walton is. UCLA, 1973.
Yep.
C, Hal Lear, Temple, 1956. D, Austin Carr, Notre Dame, 1970. Again, the question, who holds the record in the tournament for the most points scored in a single game?
Okay, so I don't think it would be David Robinson.
Okay.
As a center, I just don't think he touched the ball enough. Now, granted, he did play in an era where big men touched the ball a lot more. I don't know who C and D are.
Hal Lear, Temple, 1956. I don't either because I wasn't even thought of. Hal Lear, Lear. Yep.
Okay.
Somebody out there probably is screaming, "You don't know who Hal Lear is?" We don't.
Sorry, I'm not that old.
So I will give you a little bit of help on this one. You have eliminated by yourself the correct ones to eliminate. Of the one that we don't know.
Yeah, it's not David Robinson. It's not Hal Lear.
Okay?
I think
that leaves Bill Walton, UCLA, and Austin Carr in 1970, who played for Notre Dame.
I'm going to say that it's Bill Walton because he is such a prominent figure in all of these tournament broadcasts that I think they probably bring him on not only because he has a phenomenal personality,
okay,
but also because he is a tournament legend.
Okay.
Oh.
It was Austin Carr. He scored 61 versus Ohio. All right, question 4, Diesel. What is the lowest seed?
I know Austin Powers. I don't know Austin Carr.
Might be related. What's the lowest seed to ever make a Final Four appearance? Your choices are 12, 11, 10, and 9. The lowest seed to ever make a Final Four. 12, 11, 10, or 9 are your choices. By the way, it has happened 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Most recently with Loyola Chicago in 2018 being the lowest seed to ever make a Final Four. It's happened 4 times, and your choices are 12, 11, 10, or 9.
I'm pretty sure Loyola was a 12 seed. So I'm going to say 12. Final answer.
It was an 11 seed.
Oh.
You were close. LSU in 86, George Mason in 06, but you were close, though. VCU in 2011 and Loyola Chicago in 2018. Let's see. Are the Tolos getting these? Brian Pettit guessed Austin Carr. How about
He's
that?
on top of it.
All right, let's take it a little bit more broad here, Diesel.
You said it keeps getting harder from there?
No, I don't think so. I think this one.
Okay, so we rode the wave.
Yeah,
we're up on the roller coaster. Now we're coming back down.
This one is as of 2020. We're going to go back in time 5 years ago. Make it a little more difficult for you.
I don't remember what I had for dinner last night.
But I'm going to give you the choices. In 2020, the highest paid men's basketball coach in 2020. The choices are Chris Beard, who was at Texas Tech, John Calipari, who was at Kentucky, Coach K, who was at Duke, and Mike Cronin, who was at UCLA. The highest paid in 2020 was who?
Give me those options one more time.
The options are Chris Beard, who was at Texas Tech, John Calipari, who was at Kentucky, Coach K, who was at Duke, and Mike Cronin, who was at UCLA.
I don't ever remember them making such a huge deal about Coach K's salary at Duke. I know he was making a lot, but not a tremendous amount.
You're on the right track.
I'm going to say that it was Coach Cal at Kentucky.
You got it.
All right.
You got it. It was at the time. He was making 8.1 in 2020. So you were right. All right, let's see, Diesel. Going back to UCLA, beginning in 1967, UCLA went on to win how many consecutive national championships? The choices are 5, 6, 7, or 8.
Starting in 27, you said?
1967.
Sorry, starting in 67.
67.
67.
UCLA went on a tremendous run and won how many straight? This is nuts. This is absurd.
I'm going to say the answer was 7.
Wow. Look at you.
Yeah.
Heating back up. You're heating back up. All right, let's keep this rolling here. In 1985, Villanova became the lowest seed to ever win the national championship. What was their seed in 1985? They defeated number 1 Georgetown, who was a really good team, by the way. Villanova in 1985, they were a what seed? 8, 4, 9, or 6?
Okay, I'm going to need to phone a friend on this one.
Tolos.
So I need Brian Pettit because Brian Pettit knows his stuff.
Tolos in 1985, don't cheat, Tolos, but Villanova became the lowest seed to ever win the national championship. What was their seeding in 1985. 844-FAN phone. That's 844-326-3663. Or let's see. I think this is JD, who's already called in as, man, JD's quick with it. Quick with it. JD, can you help Diesel out? He has chosen to phone a friend. Villanova was the what seed when they won the championship in 85?
I trust you, JD. I think you know the answer to this question. I believe in you. And the options again were, Cole?
8, 4, 9, and 6.
8, 4, 9, and 6. What seed were they in 85?
God, now I'm really torn. I don't know if I'm right or not.
Oh, come on. You call the show, but you don't know the answer?
8 seed.
8 seed. All right.
There you go, JD. Good job.
Bang.
Good job, JD.
Check is in the mail,
He got
JD.
it. He did. He did good, man. He did really good.
We should grab this other caller. Since
he hung up.
Oh, man.
He hung up. I think he knew the answer. All right, I got time for one, maybe two more. Let's see which one. All right, that one's a good one.
We've done, what, 8 questions?
Yeah, but I'm going to eliminate
I think we've gotten 6 out of 8 correct.
All right, I've got 2 more for you.
Okay.
We're going to drop one. I've got 2 more for you.
Okay.
Which move was banned from the NCAA from 1967 to 1976? Slam dunk, wraparound dribble, alley-oop, or the pro hop? It was banned because there was an injury concern.
I'm going to say the alley-oop.
If you say alley-oop, you would be... It was the slam dunk.
The dunk?
Yep, the NCAA banned it for
What?
injury concerns. They said, Diesel, it was not a skillful shot.
It's kind of like the tush push. It's not a skillful, it's not a
Banned.
skillful play.
All right, one more before we run to a break.
What was the last one?
Let's see. The last.
You called it like a pro hop. What the heck is a pro hop?
Is that what it was? Let me go back.
What is a pro hop?
Yeah, it was pro hop. Yeah, that's what it was. All right, one more for you.
I don't even know what that is.
Last question. You've done well. Who is the all-time leading scorer in NCAA Division I basketball? All-time leading scorer. Your
All-time
options.
leading scorer.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry Lucas, or Pete Maravich?
That is Pistol Pete.
Wow, Diesel, just
That's
like
easy.
that. Ding.
Pistol Pete.
Look at you. You ended
At
well.
LSU, by the way.
LSU.
And I only know that one. I mean, I think that should be ingrained in every man's psyche, but it's also because Caitlin Clark just beat his record last year.
By the way, 1967 to 1970, 3,667 points.
And he didn't have a three-point shot.
That's the key.
And he
no
didn't have the
three-point
three-point shot.
Well done. Not bad. You didn't do bad there.
All right. I
You
think
did pretty good.
6. What do we get? 9 questions in?
You got 6 or so.
6 out of 9 or 7 out of 10, whatever. I know I got 3 wrong. Speaking of getting it wrong, Cole, on the other side of the break, Chad Ocho Cinco Johnson has given us men some help. The 2 hardest things in life to accomplish. Is he right? And what's number 3? If we're going to put a medal stand on this, that conversation is next. Yes or no, Cole? Are you into player podcasts? Like athletes who, exceptional on the field. They need a little something to do with their time off the field, so they just go home and they set up a studio and they record podcasts.
Depends who it is. I would say for the most part, no, but I do enjoy some, especially basketball. I'd say basketball more than football. I don't like Micah Parsons' podcast. Even though I'm a Cowboys fan, I don't like the Kelsey brothers. So I would say in general, mostly no.
I mean, a lot of people will tune in just because they're famous. They know who they are. They're like, let me tune in and see what it is that this athlete has to say.
Well, by the way, I would rather listen to a former player than a current player.
A former player. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I mean, I need them to I need to know that their brains are fully functional after they finish playing. And I'm like, okay, you've got experience. You've got history. This, Cole, is the latest piece of audio from Chad Johnson, who, number one, didn't even participate in the sport that he's trying to speak on here. This is what he says about the two hardest things in life for any man to do. And the question is, do you agree with him? And if you had to add a third, what would it be? Here's Chad Johnson.
The two most difficult things in life are hitting the baseball and keeping a woman happy long term. The two most difficult things in life. You hear me? Very. So the fact that
first of all, how does Chad Johnson know how hard it is to hit a baseball?
He probably played.
I mean, he might have, but
He
like
might have.
on a major league level, he didn't play major league. Now, I will say he's dead right about keeping a happy woman happy long term.
I think he's right about both.
Right about both. You think those are the number one and two hardest things in life?
I think hitting a baseball is one of the most difficult things to do.
I mean, if you ask a 17-year-old right now, they might say driving manual. They don't know how to do that.
Well, that's true. I think so. I think it would be very, very difficult. Again, I think he's on the woman. I mean, you can't keep women happy. They're impossible to please. So I think he's right. I mean, I don't think there's any disputing. Pitching, hitting a baseball, I think baseball is a very challenging game. Not to say other sports aren't, but I think he's dead on here.
What's number 3, Cole?
Hardest thing to do in life, the third. If hitting a baseball, keeping a woman happy long term. Number 3 would be
saying goodbye to a dog.
Yes, tough.
That's hard.
It's tough. That's a good one. It's a good answer.
Brago is a year and a half old, Cole, and he's already got a little gray hair patch in one of his ears.
Really?
And I know that that's just like genetic. There's nothing. It's not like he's getting old or anything. But it's one of those things, you see it and you're like, oh, man.
Yeah, it's tough. That's a good question. Number 3, I would say putting a dog down, that's up there. I would say watching anybody die, right? JD says hitting a golf ball, that's, you know what, that's a good one. I do think that's up there.
Have you ever played a round of golf?
Yeah, not like
could you ever consider the physics of how hard it is
Yeah.
to hit a tiny little golf ball, like an 1.5-inch ball,
Yeah.
with a stick, with a shovel strapped to the end of it, accurately for distance?
No, I think
It's absurd.
I think it's difficult. I would say a baseball is probably the toughest thing to hit, though. Because
now imagine if the golf ball was moving.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If it was rolling at you.
No,
Pretend
I
that for
think
a
that's a
second.
good one, though. The golf ball's a good one. I would say a lot of golfers would probably argue that it's number 1.
Answering the question, do these jeans make my butt look fat? I mean that's sort of rolled into the conversation about keeping a woman happy.
Or
You should say, honey, I think it looks great. I think it looks great. I think your butt looks great in those.
I don't know, man.
It's avoiding the question.
A third. There's a lot of good candidates out there. There's a lot of good. I think facing the reality. One texter says, Cadillac says getting out of debt's the third hardest.
I get it. Cadillac, it's toff because
answer. Yeah.
as soon as you think you got a hold of something, as soon as you think, okay, boom, I'm set up. I got a little bit of money like set aside in a savings account. Now I can just start paying down debts. Boom, something happens and screws it all up. Inevitably happens every single time.
That's a good answer though, Cadillac. Hit that Dave Ramsey. Hit that Dave Ramsey plan, whatever he calls it. I think
his plan is you can only eat ramen for like the next 10 years. And instead of, you like think, okay, if I'm going to go out and spend $15 on a meal, I could just spend 10 cents on a packet of ramen.
That's true.
So I eat the ramen, and I immediately pay $14.90 down on my
car.
debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, just extra $14.90.
You love ramen. It's a great idea. I would say getting old's got to be up there, right? Like, I'm not old by any means, but I hate getting older. I hate getting old.
I thought, Cole, I thought I was going to smoke you at the 40-yard dash.
Yep.
And then when you run it twice and your foot hurts for 3 days, you're like, oh, that's what they mean by turning 40 sucks. That's okay. Now I get it. Because I was like, I hadn't felt anything yet, but now I have.
Hey, Tolos, in the very next segment, let's take a deep dive into Clemson and what they've done this season when it comes to basketball. They've had an exceptional year, but as I was doing some digging this morning, something doesn't add up. Something does not add up with Clemson basketball. We'll get into that next. Diesel, I meant to do this yesterday, but totally forgot. As we were talking about Clemson, South Carolina, and the weekend series, I wanted to give a shout out to one of our Tolos, but I'm forgetful. I forget to do things.
It's okay.
It happens from time to time, right? It is what it is. I wanted to shout out, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Tolo Christie. I believe Christie was the one that came up and spoke to you and I.
Christy Mann
Came up and spoke to you and I at the Greenville Drive floor field Clemson South Carolina game on Saturday, and just wanted to give a shout out to Christy because she had some really kind words for us and the show, and she's awesome. We appreciate her and everybody else listening, but it's encouraging to hear things like Christy said when it comes to this show and how much she enjoys it. So shout out to you, Christy, man, if you are listening. We appreciate you listening, and it was good to see you on Saturday over in Greenville. And hope your outcome. I know your outcome was. I don't want to go there. I don't want to rag on her. I don't want to rag.
You don't want to ruin.
I don't want to ruin it.
The nice statement.
Yeah, it wasn't a good outcome, but it was good to see her. So I meant to do that yesterday, but totally forgot. And then as we get into Clemson basketball, Diesel, we'll get more in depth in this in the 6 o'clock segment. But the biggest news regarding Clemson of the day is something that we talked about yesterday, previewed. We forecasted this happening. The ACC, Florida State, Clemson reach revenue distribution settlement. It's been reported by just about everybody and their mother today, but they ended their ongoing litigation on Tuesday today after agreeing to a settlement that changes the league's revenue distribution model and significantly, Diesel, reduces exit penalties for members wanting to leave the conference. A good day for the ACC and Clemson and Florida State as a whole. Quick thoughts on that.
Yeah, the numbers are staggering. What were they saying, a year ago, a year and a half ago when Florida State started this whole process? They were estimating that it was going to cost them something like $400 million to get out of the ACC and give up their grant of rights for the entirety of the contract up until 2036. Well, Cole, that number has come down in a major, major way. The grant of rights remains in place through 2036, but beginning next year, the exit fee will be $165 million. That fee declines by $18 million per year, leveling off at $75 million in 2030, 2031.
Yeah,
so
only 136 or 165 million.
But, I mean, think about it this way, Cole. You could, 5 years from right now, be looking at a $75 million exit fee to get out of the ACC if you're Clemson and Florida State. That is a gigantic reduction in what they thought they were going to have to pay to get out prior to this settlement coming into place. So 5-6 years from now, and think about it this way also, anytime there is major conference realignment, these things typically, up until the Texas-Oklahoma situation, they all kind of happened over a 4 or 5 year stretch anyway. Like you would hear rumblings that they were interested in leaving, and then by the time they actually joined their new conference, you'd be talking about something 5 years down the road. Yeah. Well, now they have a target. Clemson and Florida State, maybe something happens and they stay happy in the ACC, and they got no reason to leave 5 years from now. But if the SEC changes their minds, if the Big Ten changes their minds, if the Big 12 comes a-calling, I mean, $75 million is much, much more palatable than $450 million.
So we'll get back into that in the 6 o'clock hour during the 6 o'clock segment. But because it was breaking Tolos, wanted to touch on it very quickly as it's big news today. But Diesel, I was doing some digging, some research this morning on Clemson basketball. You know, we talk a lot of Clemson basketball. We had Evan Miyakawa on the show yesterday. By the way, he was a fantastic guest. If you missed it, you can go back and listen on your Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, also on the fanupstate.com. EvanMia.com joined us. And I wanted this morning to really do a deep dive on his site and college basketball ratings, the analytics side, Diesel, and try to find out really what made this Clemson team in 2024 and 2025 so good, and not only what made them so good, what makes them so good. However, as we do this deep dive into Clemson basketball and look where they stack up statistically, I will start the segment by saying I was a little dumbfounded. I was a little lost this morning because what's so intriguing about Clemson basketball in 2024 and 2025, they don't have guys that jump off the page statistically. If you go to ESPN or CBS or NCAA.com Diesel, whatever platform you want to use, and look up individual statistics, guess what? You're not going to find a Clemson Tiger anywhere. In fact, when you look at the team, their team doesn't rank in the very top in these categories. For example, they rank 86th in the country in total scoring offense. They rank 35 in the country in scoring defense. Not bad. They rank 292nd in the country in bench points. They have no bench is what that means. Diesel, they're 13th in the country in team total ratings, according to evanmia.com. We know that they're 11th in the AP poll, but what's so baffling, what's so hard to understand about this Clemson team is what makes them so good? What makes them so good? Because their individual play is not ranked anywhere in the top of the country.
I think ultimately it comes down to that old adage, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And all you have to do is be good enough in each category to win. And you're right. I mean, we've talked how many times about how nice it would be for Clemson to start getting more bench production, and they have. They've seen that really pick up over the past couple of weeks or so, but still they're not elite when it comes to bench scoring. But they're good enough in all of those categories that when you combine them together somehow, when the algorithm spits out the number, all of a sudden, boom, you're 13th best team.
Yeah, they're 4-2 in quad 1 wins, 7-2 in quad 2 wins, 8-1 in quad 3 wins, 5-0 in quad 4 wins. It's just fascinating to me. They're 24-5 on the season. They rank 15th in the country in net rating, which is a good rank for net rating. I have looked everywhere. I have looked through every site, through every possible site out there to try to find exactly what it is that separates this team. Now, granted, in the ACC, Diesel, they're very good because the ACC has had a down year. So if you're looking just based on conference, Clemson ranks towards the top of the conference in a lot of these. But on a national scale, they're nowhere to be found. I looked at an offensive rating versus defensive rating chart that shows the 2024-2025 full season stats. This is a chart that you saw when you were back in math class, Diesel, learning about graphs and charts, where offensive rating is at the bottom and defensive rating is on the left side. Clemson is about as good as they get in the ACC. When it comes to offensive rating, they're somewhere between 118 and 120. When it comes to defensive rating, they're somewhere between 102 and 104. So there's only SMU, who has a better offensive rating but a worse defensive rating, in Louisville, who, by the way, beat Clemson, who has a better defensive rating but not as good as an offensive rating. There's only a few teams that are right there with them, other than Duke, who is all by themselves, Diesel, at the very top right of that graphic with a 128 offensive rating and a 94 defensive rating. It's so fascinating because Clemson does all the things right. They're so unselfish. They share the basketball. But I think, you know what I think this comes down to? You said it, and you know, not all the times we talk about it. We don't talk about it enough, rather, that there's so many different ways to your point, skin a cat. But let's give flowers where flowers are due here, credit where credit's due to Brad Brunell. I mean, Diesel, he's got a bunch of guys playing together as the 11th best team in the country and doesn't have a single player leading a statistical category. And not to mention, he doesn't have a single player that's in the top 10 of a statistical category. Let's give flowers to Brad Brunell here.
He deserves a tremendous amount of credit for putting this roster together and getting them to play, you know, the biggest pieces on this team. Victor Locken is a transfer. There's multiple transfers on this team this year, Cole. That have come in, and it took them a little while to get going. Victor Locken, you know, was sick, was injured to start the season, and has certainly picked it up down the stretch. What I do like about this evanmia.com is when you look at his, you know, top, you know, well, he ranks all of them, but when you look at the first page, the top 50 teams that he's got in college basketball, he puts little icons next to the team's names and kind of shouts out what they're actually really, really good at. And you look at Duke, he says Duke is on a hot streak. Okay, that's great. Most of the best teams are on a hot streak.
Yeah.
He says Auburn, they're dealing with some injuries. When you go down to the Clemson tab, though, he's got what's the little icon is a lock. He says this team is consistent.
I saw that.
They perform at a similar level from game to game when compared to other teams. Clemson gives you that solid performance night in and night out. And that's part of what, having a rotation on the court where 4 of your guys every night, pretty much like clockwork, are going to get into double figures. Somebody's going to score 17, 18, 20 points. Somebody's going to be that one to step up. But it really doesn't matter which one it is because you're going to get a little bit off the bench from Chauncey Wiggins, and you're going to get 4 guys in double figures out of the starting lineup. Not everybody can score 20 points. It's just a fact. It can't have. There's not enough possessions in a game for everybody to score 20 points. But it's really interesting, Cole, when you look at, and this is something Evan brought up yesterday, when you look at the top lineup, the top 5-man rotation for Clemson, especially when you compare that to Duke, Clemson's 5-man rotation is worth about 8 more points a game.
Yeah.
Their best 5-man rotation. Yeah.
And T Swizzle on the YouTube stream says, grit, junkyard dogs. Kane says they're just clutch. T Swizzle says, Clemson is better this year than last year. Might hurt someone's or some people's feelings. That's a good conversation to have. Maybe we can have that. I don't know. They're a lot different of a team. T Swizzle says Dell Jones coming along also. You're right. He had a really good game on Saturday, playing a lot more minutes also, T Swizzle, than he has as of late. And what's interesting, Diesel, you mentioned that top 5-man lineup that we talked about with Evan yesterday in that interview. Think about this. Try to wrap your head around this. Clemson has the top 5-man lineup in the country. But if you scroll up and look at every single individual statistical category, you can't find them. They're not even on the same planet. So what does that tell you? That tells you that Hunter, Locken, Shefflin, Dylan, and Zachary, both Hunter, it was also funny how he didn't really do this, but he told us in that interview yesterday that he's close with someone on the staff, and he said, hey, look, when they made that lineup change, they were talking about these numbers, and basically Evan Miyakawa was the one that made the lineup change, not Brad Brownell. But it's so fascinating that you look at how efficient this offense is and how efficient this team is when those 5 are on the floor with Chase, Dylan, Victor, Ian, and Jaden, but they're nowhere to be found. I think that just goes to show that they play good team basketball. They have good chemistry. And another thing that we've talked about multiple times, Diesel, is these are veteran guys. Mm-hmm. Like, these are guys who have been around the block, been in this system, been in other systems, and you know what? They may not be statistically the best individually, but when it comes to March Madness, and you and I here in a week and a half, 2 weeks, are printing these brackets out, don't you weigh experience just as much as anything else? Yeah, you got to score the basketball. That's the goal. You have to defend. Everybody knows that. But, man, I just feel like this experience that this Clemson team has can be maybe the catalyst that does get them back into the Elite Eight. It's going to be difficult, but I just view the experience as just as much as weight as any of those stats that you throw out there.
Well, isn't it amazing, Cole, when you look back over the years, you look back at Gonzaga teams that have been really good because they're older, more mature players that know how to move the ball around, and not every year did Gonzaga have one of those elite players that's just taking the college game by storm. And this is not a sexy brand of basketball, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this brand of basketball is not going to get you on highlight reels all that often until somebody realizes what you're bringing up right here, right now. It's kind of hard to put a finger on why this team is so good, but they just do everything well. And when you combine doing all those things well, it's sort of like Captain Planet. You got Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, Heart. You combine those things. When your powers combine, you got Captain Planet. And this team turns into Captain Planet when they play.
And also, to your point about Gonzaga and having older teams, flip that coin over to the other side. teams who have been young. And I think the first thing that comes to my mind is John Calipari. John Calipari at Kentucky, guess what, Diesel? They had a ton of talent over the past few years. They had some really good basketball teams over the past few years. But you know what they didn't have over the past few years? Championships. They didn't have championships. Cal had all these teams, Diesel, was studs, freshmen who were some of the best freshmen in the country who have gone on to have fantastic NBA careers. Same thing with Duke. But let's look back. You know the last time Duke won a national championship? 2015. You know the last time Kentucky's won a national championship? Big Bad Blue Kentucky? 2012. So that goes to show that John Calipari from 2013 to 2023, 24 rather, which is 10, 11 years, Diesel, those last 10 to 11 years of John Calipari at Kentucky, with all the talent he had, all the 5 stars, all the NBA first-round picks, didn't win a championship.
See, I think you can compare the one-and-done freshman-heavy methodology that Calipari used while at Kentucky. You can compare that to a team in football that goes transfer-heavy in college football. Look at it, compare it to a Florida State team that went super heavy on transfers. It can work out for you, but sometimes it will come back and bite you, and you end up having a team that's just simply not talented enough. If you miss on one guy, if you miss on 2 guys, all of a sudden you're in a down season.
Yeah, and T-Swizzle on the stream, Flag is going to be a major problem in March. Almost feels like he's just now peaking. You're right. It's weird, T-Swizzle. It does feel that way. I mean, last night was phenomenal in what was probably his last home game at Cameron. He is. He's going to be a problem in March. I completely agree with you there.
It's just depressing to know that we're not getting a second year at Cooper Flag. We're not getting a third year. We're not getting a fourth year. Imagine how
he'll be in a different jersey.
Well, imagine how much of a media darling a senior Cooper Flag would be if he spent 4 years at Duke. And that's something that college basketball has got to figure out if they want to generate stars in the game. Speaking of stars, on the other side of the break, we have John Whittle from thebigspur.com, 24/7 Sports. Look him up at John M. Whittle on Twitter, talking all things South Carolina Gamecocks next, right here on the Fan Upstate. Well, Tom from Somerville batting 500 on his predictions going into this past weekend of play. He said that South Carolina baseball was going to sweep Clemson and that South Carolina basketball was getting hot. Well, he was right about one of those two things, but to talk about both, we go to the phone lines and we're joined by John Whittle of thebigspur.com, writes for 24/7 Sports as well. Look him up on Twitter and go give him a follow at John M. Whittle. We appreciate your time today, John. Let's cut right to the chase. Is the Clemson series and the failure of the Bats Monty Lee's fault? Because we heard a lot of social media blame squarely on Monty Lee for just 15 hits against the Tigers. Or are Gamecock fans a little guilty of feeling themselves a little too much going into that series?
Well, I'll be honest. I don't know if either one of those two things are true. I that was a really bold prediction from whoever down in Somerville, thinking that it was going to be a South Carolina sweep. But I mean, at the end of the day, Monty deserves some criticism. He's been here for a while and recruited a bunch of these players, not all these players, but a bunch of these players, and had a hand in a lot of it. He's the hitting coach, and when you come out of a weekend, especially against your rival, people are going to be looking for someone to blame and a scapegoat. And when you don't perform well, and he's as good a guy as any, I guess. He definitely has a role in it. We'll see how things evolve as the season progresses with this team offensively, but certainly wasn't a good weekend. And Monty's going to have to wear it a little bit right now because, 15 hits, scoring runs, and 3 out of 27 innings are not good enough. And he's very highly paid, one of the highest paid assistant coaches, if not the highest paid assistant coach in the country. So when you have titles like that, you got to wear the negative that comes along with the positives too.
Hey, John, it's Cole. I want to ask you a question that kind of follows up that answer, because we've heard Paul Mainieri talk about Monty Lee and say things like, I've never seen a hitting coach work as hard with the hitters, with the players, as Monty Lee does. And then at the same time, we hear Paul Mainieri in the postgame presser on Sunday in a question you asked addressed the hitting woes. So where do you draw the line in terms of what Paul Mainieri said of eventually the players just have to step up and have clutch at bats versus placing blame on a coach?
Well, Paul Mainieri's been around this thing for a while. When I say this thing, I mean the sport of college baseball. So he's been around a lot of good coaches. He's got a better eye for it than basically anybody out there. Certainly me being in that category. So I'm gonna trust in him that he believes in Monty Lee as a great hitting coach. And there are a lot of people out there who think that he's invited all across the country to speak at whatever college baseball convention or whatever baseball convention about hitting. He was hired by the Dodgers in that time in between leaving Clemson and coming to South Carolina as a hitting coach in the Dodgers organization. Like he's respected at every level. So there's something there to him, and this team has certainly not been good enough offensively, even beyond this past weekend. This season so far, and Monty's recruited some of these guys, and a lot of these guys, and it's a lot of the burden goes on him. But at the same time, he isn't the one standing in the batter's box and taking pitches, swinging at pitches, not making good enough contact. I'm of the opinion that they had some good at bats on Friday night. Saturday and Sunday were much less competitive. Really disappointing weekend for those guys.
John, as bad as anemic as hitting was over the weekend, starting pitching looked pretty good. I mean, McCoy was phenomenal on Saturday. The problem that South Carolina is going to face is, number one, you got to bring that hitting up, and you got to do it with some guys that are not usually going to be tasked all that often. Some early injuries really putting this team behind the 8 ball with the injury with Kennedy Jones, the injury with Talmadge LaCroix. So who's going to have to step up and be big for them, and what is your confidence level in that ability?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's some answers to figure out there too that aren't particularly obvious, and the first thing they got to figure out, and they may know, and I just don't know it yet, exactly how long some of these guys are going to be out. If LaCroix's only out a couple of games, and it's okay. If Kenny Jones is only out a couple of games, it's okay. But they're going to have to figure out, regardless of their health, what the best lineup is. They are going to put Bo Hollins into the lineup tonight at first base and move Ethan Petrie out to right field. So, that bolsters some things. I think think Bo Hollins has a tremendously high ceiling, but it's going to take there's going to be a few growing pains there offensively. There's going to be a few strikeouts and so forth that you're going to have to endure. But the kid's got some power, and I think that he is going to be pretty good and could be this year too. So he's one guy I circle, but there's guys who have to step up and play better who are supposed to be in the starting lineup. I look at Henry Kazmir as a guy that they've got to get going. Starting shortstop, he was the big transfer portal get in the cycle for the Gamecocks, and he was really good in the fall. He was good in the preseason. It hadn't translated yet into the regular season from an offensive standpoint. Really good defensively, but he's a two-hole hitter, and that's where they need him. That's what they need him to be. You look at what South Carolina's doing offensively, and I don't think I've seen this before. A dozen games into the season, you have 3 guys hitting 400 or better. You got no guys in the 300s. Everybody else is below 300, apart from Ethan Petrie, Nathan Hall, and Jace Warda, who are all 400 or above. So, you're either got a guy at the plate who's been pretty good, or you've got a guy at the plate who's been pretty bad. And they got to get some guys. They got to get some guys going. And Henry Kazmir's one that I think really needs to step up, and Nolan Naraki as well.
And, John, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Henry was in the lineup Sunday against Clemson, which is interesting because I believe it was after the Milwaukee series last weekend. We were talking about Henry in postgame with Pulmonary, about his confidence and, how he's gotten better from fall camp to now and the overall team confidence. Do you think it's a confidence issue for South Carolina at the plate, or would you put your finger elsewhere?
I don't know that it's a confidence issue. It shouldn't be, at this early stage of the season. I mean, I think there's a variety of things going on with some different people. They've been working on some things with Kazmir specifically from a mechanical standpoint. I do think Nolan Naraki was kind of domed up, this past weekend going against his old team. Nathan Hall seemed to shake it off, fairly well. Nolan Naraki did not. But they got to get some of the right guys in there too, who are being productive. And one name I should have mentioned a minute ago was Jordan Carrion. To me, he needs to be in the lineup somewhere. He can play second, short, third. He can play any of those spots at a high level. He's not a guy who's going to put a whole lot of juice into the baseball, but he is going to give you a good at bat, and that's something that South Carolina needs right now.
Talking to John Whittle from the Big Spur on the show right now. At John M. Whittle on X is where you can find him. South Carolina gets their second SEC conference win of the season in basketball by just absolutely shutting down a Calipari-led Arkansas team to the tune of, I think, just 14 first-half points. They got big-time minutes from Jordan Butler and Morris Ugasuk off the bench in that game, but, the story was Colin Murray-Boyles, and he was just on another level. What was the message from Lamont Paris before that game, and how has that message changed to his team after that game, after finally just kind of cracking the code and keeping this team engaged despite having so many woes in the conference play?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there can be much of a message right now, except you just got to go out there and compete and play to the best of your ability. I mean, you're not really playing for anything at this point, right? Like, I mean, you aren't playing to get into an NIT or an NCAA tournament or anything like that. You're just trying to go out there and compete for pride. Another thing that is probably a little bit more subconscious for these guys is they're probably competing to be back on the roster next year. There's going to have to be some transition to get some guys through the NCAA transfer portal. And I mean, if you want to make a strong impression on your coaching staff with the way you're playing. If you've cashed it in, at this point in the season, then, there's a good chance that you're going to be looking to for another school, in a month or so. So, I think that's the biggest deal for these guys. And the message is just to go out there, keep competing, keep playing hard, and, try to win as many games as you can.
John, I want to go back to something that you said a few minutes ago, and it kind of relates to something that one of our listeners brought up yesterday, going back to baseball for a second. You said that you couldn't really remember a time where the lineup was below 300 like it is now. A listener called in yesterday and asked us if we can, or if he can, and South Carolina fans can, and it was JD, I believe it was, who was asking if Gamecock fans can still place blame on Mark Kingston and his recruiting, and obviously Monty was still on staff, but when you talk about the inability to get timely hitting over the weekend and getting swept by Clemson, in your mind, how much of that's still on the past staff?
I mean, you can always figure out a way to place blame on pretty much anybody you want to for whatever reason, right? Like that's the way the world works at this point. But I mean, you look at the guys who have been productive, and some of these guys are Kingston players, and some of the guys are not. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to figure it out. To me, is more about, okay, what's the talent level like? Are these guys performing up to their capabilities? I think several of these guys are performing below their capabilities at this point. Mark Kingston's not the coach right now. You got to look back or you got to look at who's coaching them now, and that's, to me, where the blame goes on the guys who aren't playing up to their capabilities. Now, if their talent level isn't high enough, that goes on who brought them in, and there's an element of that in here too. Is some of these guys just may not be quite good enough, and that falls ultimately on the head coach at that time, but certainly some on the guys who recruited them and brought them in as well. And we can't forget that there's more than one assistant coach on the staff beyond Monty Lee. So there's plenty of blame to go around, and I could sit here and make an argument for anybody as to who's most to blame. It's just how people want to perceive it.
John, we have what I like to think is a pretty active chat on our video live stream. It's kind of a show within a show. There's always something wild happening over there. Yesterday, there was a pretty heated debate about the calendar year series between Clemson and South Carolina and how they were performing in the major sports. And nobody really put a whole lot of respect on the South Carolina softball team that is off to a white-hot start this season. And my God, I mean, they are seemingly unbeatable. Now, it's about to get real with a 3-game series on the road at number 2 Oklahoma, coming up this weekend. How big, can you give us a vibe of how big the energy around the softball program and team is at South Carolina, and if it feels like it's on the verge of becoming a major sport there in Columbia?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and I could say, if South Carolina being ranked where they are and or having the wins that they have, like if it were all against like South Carolina's baseball schedule, like that, it might be a little bit of fool's gold. But they went up to play Duke, a top 10 team in the country, and swept them. They took 2 from Virginia earlier this year in a tournament too. So they've one from North Carolina as well. So they've played some decent competition and gone out there and gotten the job done. But I fully expected Ashley Chastain Woodard to be really good here. South Carolina hasn't been above 500 in the SEC, but one time there's 2 times when I think it was 15 years that Beverly Smith was here. I did not think that they would flirt with 500 in the SEC this year, and they still may not because the league's so dang good. But she's got the program going a lot quicker than I thought she had the opportunity to do. They've developed a couple of pitchers and they play really good defense. And those who follow softball know that if you've got a couple of really good pitchers and you can play some defense behind them, you're going to beat them pretty much every game. And then it's a matter of figuring out, how to score just a couple of runs to support them. And, they got a bopper in the lineup in Ariana Rodi, and they've got a great leadoff hitter in Quincy Lilio, who last I looked, I haven't looked at the stats here recently, but last I looked, her on-base percentage was up about 650 from the leadoff spot. So she's been awesome. I would imagine it dropped a little bit coming out of the Duke series, but she's been awesome. And they've played well, and there's confidence there. And I've been around to see a few games, and they just have a little bit of an aura about them. But you're right, the real season kind of gets going this weekend when they have to go out to Oklahoma, and that's the toughest ask in that sport, is to go to Oklahoma and play a 3-game series against the Sooners. So they got prepared a little bit this past weekend at Duke, and I guess it's a really big deal this weekend to be out in Norman.
John, as we let you go, we always appreciate your time, but as we part ways today, can you give Gamecock fans out there in the upstate today, Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, wherever Tolos may be listening, a sense of calming peace as you go, because there's a lot of frustration, a lot of panic from getting swept by their bitter rival, but it's a long season, right? And you and I were talking about Sunday after the post-game presser how Clemson swept before, but South Carolina's had the last laugh. Why, in your mind, do you think all could be just okay here in a few months for the Gamecocks?
I don't know. I'm probably not the right person to ask that right now. Like, I'm of the opinion that when you play that poorly and get that embarrassed by your rival, you should have some strong feelings. And I don't blame any South Carolina fan for having some strong feelings about where the program is right now. But to your point, it is still a long season. It's 14 weeks, and this is week 3. Just finished week 3. And, there is a long way to go, but you saw this past weekend that there's so much that's got to be better. It's a little bit discouraging to watch how South Carolina played, but at the same time, they have hopefully been able to identify some weaknesses, figured out how to correct some of that, coach it up a little bit better. I'm sure they've figured out some changes that need to be made. Got to get a couple of guys healthy again, and then go from there. But we have seen South Carolina teams that have performed really poorly in that series and gone on to be really good in the past. And you hope that's the way it is this time. You've got a proven winner in the dugout on the top step. That wasn't necessarily the case for the past head coach. He wasn't really a proven winner anywhere, but Paul Mainieri is. So if you've got a strong leader there, you can fight through some adversity and get on the right track. And I do think that there's enough talent on this roster to be very competitive in the SEC. So there were some good things coming out of the weekend from a pitching standpoint, some things that need to be addressed, but I do think that there is enough talent in that clubhouse to be competitive in the league. Not competitive from a championship standpoint, but competitive from a NCAA tournament standpoint. And you'll see if you can get there and see where it goes from there.
John, fantastic stuff as always. We appreciate your time, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely, always appreciate you having me. Take care.
That's John Whittle, the Big Spur. Very honest as I like it. That's exactly how it should be. We will get to some of the top stories in sports. It has been a crazy day with breaking news left and right. Daily Wires next, right here on the Fan Upstate. lot go. Turn the microphone on, you idiot. God. What is that? A quarter now?
Womp.
Didn't turn the microphone on before I started speaking, running my trap, but try again is what they say, right, Gamecock fans? The Daily Wire's Diesel is where we go right now, all over the place in this very segment. A lot happened today in the world of sports, but most importantly, the only thing that matters is LeBron James, right? That's at least what I think.
LeBron James.
As the Lakers host the Pelicans tonight, why is that a story? Why is that news? Well, LeBron James is 1 point away from scoring 50,000 points, a feat no other player in the history of the NBA has done.
Come on, Pelicans D. You could do
Hold him
this.
scoreless?
Hold him scoreless.
That's not going to happen. Clemson baseball, not basketball. I about said basketball. Clemson baseball takes on USC Upstate tonight at 6 p.m. at Floor Field here in Greenville. It's going to be a cold night in Greenville for Clemson fans making their way out there. South Carolina, as John Whittle said, hosts Davidson tonight. Founders Park, 6:30. So two teams in action tonight. Both, I was going to say both at home, but Clemson in the Upstate, still not too far away from their original home. Minnesota Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold is unlikely to be franchise tagged ahead of Tuesday's 4 p.m. deadline. Minnesota's still working on re-signing Darnold, but it's unlikely without the tag. Diesel, something that was tough to watch last night. Kyrie Irving suffered a knee injury last night during the Mavs game, came back out on the floor to shoot his free throws. We knew at the time it was a knee injury. Didn't know what it was until this morning. It was released that Kyrie Irving tore his ACL last night. So he's done for the season. But you know what? I said on Twitter today, pretty legendary to silence a lot of the hate that Kyrie gets to walk out there and still shoot those free throws.
Yeah, that's, number one, it probably hurts like hell to walk out there with an ACL tear. Number two, do you know if he made the shot?
I think
he made the free throw or free throws.
Yeah, I think
either way. Look, Kyrie's caught a lot of heat for some of his beliefs, and to show that you're willing to give everything you got to your team and your city, I think that's huge. Now I just wonder, Cole, if Dallas is going to back off on that 8% price hike next year.
I put on Twitter today, when it rains in Dallas, it pours in Dallas. And boy, are they going through it right now. Between the Cowboys and now the Mavs, oh my gosh, that's tough. But last night, also tough, Cooper Flagg, what he did, 28, 10 of 16, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals. Probably, Diesel, we talked about this earlier, probably his last home game of the season.
You're telling me there's not enough NIL money at Duke to keep him around for one more year?
I know, just one
Come
more.
on.
Just one more. Lamont Paris and the Gamecocks, they're back in action. They host Georgia tonight in Colonial Life. Tip scheduled for 6 p.m. in
Hottest
Columbia.
team in America.
Hey, they're undefeated in March, Diesel, so keep on hating, Clemson fans, right? Come on. Undefeated in the month of March. There are 7 top 25 matchups in college basketball tonight, including number 1 ranked Auburn, who travels to A&M. Should be a good game. So a really good night in college basketball. 7 ranked top 25 matchups. Sign me up. Diesel, it was reported. We have sad music, depressed music. I didn't want to read it. It was reported yesterday that Sean Murphy of the Atlanta Braves will miss 4 to 6 weeks with a cracked left rib. Didn't we just talk about last week how plagued the Braves were? Didn't we just talk about it?
Got to stay healthy.
And we can't. A cracked rib. Drake Baldwin, who there's a lot of talk about the potential career that he can have, a really good prospect, will have a chance to begin the season as Atlanta's starting catcher. Speaking of Atlanta, just 23 days until the Braves begin their 2025 season. First with a 4-game series in San Diego. Good luck. Followed by a 3-game series in LA. Good more luck. It's going to be tough.
What if they started the season 0-7? What if?
What do you mean, what if? You mean when they start 0-7?
1-6? Is that the best you can hope for?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And 2 more for you. Just 28 days until the first ever baseball game at Fifth Third Park in Spartanburg, as Wofford and USC Upstate will face off. Just 31 days until the Greenville Drive and Hub City Spartanburgers open their season. And if you missed it earlier, Eagles have made Saquon Barkley the NFL's top-paid running back with a 2-year extension. The Jets has said goodbye to Devontae Adams. They have let him walk. And Clemson and Florida State in the ACC reaching a revenue settlement. One more for you. The Cowboys, Osa Odigizua, have reached a 4-year, $80 million deal. Also, Cowboys-related, really big news here. They have restructured CeeDee Lamb's contract, freeing up $20 million in cap space. So that's a little bit of good news when we need some good news.
And some of the details were finally released on the settlement between Clemson, Florida State, and the ACC. The cost, the fee to get out of the ACC is going to drop significantly starting next year to, it's not right in front of me, Cole, somewhere around $168 million. And then after that, it drops an $18 million per year until 2030, 2031, where it levels out from then on out. And you got 5 years until the contract expires.
How about that?
When we come back, Cole, it is time for you and I to test our knowledge, to haggle, to, I think I can say this word on the radio, dicker when it comes to...
Dicker the kicker.
Yeah, exactly. We'll haggle on prices on Facebook Marketplace for sports-related items right here in the upstate. See who is closest. Our Marketplace Mondays on a Tuesday coming your way next. entering hour number 3 of Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Tolos, appreciate you hanging out and Toloing with us all day. Let's see. Zach Breeze asked the question, do the Drive and Spartanburgers play each other? Yeah, they do. They're in the same league. They're at the same level. And they're going to play each other a lot over the course of the season.
And they're going to lose. Greenville's going to lose.
Oh, okay. Okay, if you think so.
Let's go, baby.
I think we should play some sort of bet on this. How about it, Cole?
We should.
I mean, these teams are shuffled roster-wise every year.
Yeah.
So
we don't really know.
Does it really hurt you being an expansion team, an expansion franchise in high A ball? I don't think so. I mean, maybe it's just guys getting used to being in a new city, and that slows you down a little, but I'm not so sure, Cole. But they will play each other a long series in April, the 22nd through the 27th. They'll play a long series there, and that, as a matter of fact, starts things off between this rivalry in the home of the Spartanburgers, Fifth Third Park there in downtown Spartanburg. And then the middle of May, they will play a week-long series in Greenville at Fluor Field. So you'll get to see those two teams face each other a total of about 10 or 11 times over the first month of the season, first 6 weeks of the season. So excited to see this rivalry get going. JB on the stream says Duke will choke during March Madness. I see Clemson making it further than Duke in the tournament. Wouldn't be surprised if the Tigers are a Final Four team.
That's a bold. That's a bold statement, JB. I like to think you would be right, but I think Duke is legit this year.
You know, I spent some time listening to Crane and Company, Jake Crane's show. We have him on our show fairly regularly. And all three of those guys on that show were just bagging on Duke hard, saying there's no way Duke is as good as the hype says they are. They play in the weak ACC. They don't have the strength of schedule. Like it's just copy point, bullet point down the line, all of the arguments that SEC homers make when it comes to football season. Now they're just applying it to basketball season as well.
We shall see on that one.
We shall see. You know, Cole, there's an old saying, the value of anything is what someone is willing to pay for it.
Yep.
And one of the largest places you can buy and sell things online is Facebook Marketplace. You and I have made it a tradition every week now during the offseason when, let's be real, there's not a ton to talk about, to go on Facebook Marketplace, you up there in Spartanburg, me down here in Greenville, and we find Facebook Marketplace sports-related items for sale and test each other's knowledge to see what we think it might be worth. What would you be willing to offer for something if you didn't see the price listed? That is the game here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I've got 4 items. How many do you have?
I've got 3 right now, but I'm looking for one more.
Okay.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay.
I like this
game.
game.
I'll go first. Here we go, Cole. Testing our skills on predicting Facebook Marketplace values of items. So here we go. And I told you I was going to throw you for a loop on this one.
You did. I'm kind of nervous on this one.
I've never seen somebody write this on a description on Facebook Marketplace.
I'm nervous.
This is a signed Rudy Rudiger, as in Notre Dame's Rudy Rudiger jersey that's in, quote, great condition. It is framed, but the frame is not for sale. And it's got not 1, but 2 stickers of authenticity stuck to the number 45 on the back of the jersey itself. Now, what's fun is one of the stickers is like one of those little hologram stickers that, depending on how you look at it in the light, the words expose themselves. On this tiny little sticker, it's upside down, by the way. It's not straight on the number. And it looks like there's some other kind of like authenticating sticker or something on the other number. One's on the 4, one is on the 5. So a great condition, autographed Rudy Rudiger jersey. It is framed right now, but the frame is not for sale.
Why?
I don't know.
Why is the frame not for
It's
sale?
not even a special frame. It's just like it looks like a cheap Walmart shadow box.
Imagine rolling up to their house and saying, "Oh yeah, that looks great. I can't wait." And the lady or man says, "Yeah, here you go. Let's take it out of the frame, and I'm just gonna hand you the."
The crazy thing is, like, it looks like it's folded and pinned in there nicely, the way you would pin a jersey into a shadow box. What do you think just the jersey is listed for on Facebook Marketplace?
Rudy.
Tolos, by the way,
Rudy,
you can play along
Rudy.
as well in the comments section. Comment what you think the asking price is.
Rudy.
Famous.
Yep.
Played by
famous,
Sean Astin.
One of
who
the best sports movies
Yeah.
ever, right?
Played
Many would
Bob from
argue
Stranger Things.
that it's the best.
Sam from Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Many would argue that it's the best. Rudy signed jersey. I would say, look, I know it's a great movie. I know it's a great story, but I'm not going to, Zach.
Yeah.
Don't even. No. JB. Okay, I'll read it. JB guesses 300.
The question is, what would Leprechaun of Lyman offer for
Yeah,
this?
Zach guesses 4,500. See, it's definitely way less than Zach's, but I think Diesel, it's even less than JB. Brad on the Facebook stream says I'd say 200, and I'm going to go even less than Brad. I'm going to go 125 for this Rudy signed jersey.
Well, they would gladly take your 125, Cole, because this autographed Rudy Rudiger jersey in great condition is listed for $80.
Okay, not terribly far. Zach, by the way, he said, look, I meant 450, not 4,500.
I meant Joe Montana.
What's your
Brad
name?
Wood says probably a fake with 2 stickers. Look, I don't know, man.
That's
This-
$80 for a Rudy
$80.
jersey.
Yeah, you got to be like the hardest of hardcore Notre Dame fans.
You know
to
what
want
the
this thing.
reality of it is, though? Like, while it's a great story, and I may upset someone, I may, ruffle some feathers with some Notre Dame fans, Diesel.
Don't you say it.
While it's a great story, Rudy, what's Rudy really? That doesn't move the meter in
It's a
terms.
great movie.
Yeah, but in
It's an
terms of
amazing
like
movie.
the player, the icon, signatures, and the signature world. What is a Rudy? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not really worth much.
We
So-
don't know how many items he autographed. Could
lot.
be
I'm
he
sure
signed a whole bunch,
thousands.
especially after the movie came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brad says, I'm shocked. Some of those things are ridiculous priced. Oh, no doubt, Brad. They really are. So I don't know that Notre Dame fans would give that, but it's interesting. Diesel, my first one for you is NFL related, football related. It also, excuse me, it also comes with a frame, as yours did not. This one is with a frame. Your Rudy jersey was without a frame. So this one's pretty cool. I think it's a great picture, and it would look great like on our wall here in the Fan Upstate studio. I don't know how much it's actually worth, but what it is, it's an autographed J.J. Watt framed picture of him in a jersey running out with an American flag. It looks awesome, and I'm going to show the stream, but I'm not going to show the number. So Diesel, look at the stream, but don't look at my phone. It's a really cool photo of J.J. Watt. I mean,
Oh, nice.
it looks great. It looks really, really good. So it may be, to a Houston Texans fan back when he played in Houston, it may be worth something. But I think this would look good in an office of someone who's a fan of JJ. But it's autographed by him. It looks good, I will say. I'd love it sitting right there. Diesel, they're asking, all it does in the description, it says signed and framed, COA included, which is good, right? You always want the authenticity. Pickup only, so they're not going to deliver this. So autographed J.J. Watt framed with the signature above J.J., him holding the American flag. What do you think this is going for on this Tuesday edition of Marketplace Monday?
Tolos, remember, you can jump in on the stream.
Yes,
you
please
can
do.
text in what you think this item might be listed for. Okay, J.J. Watt going to go down as a very, very good player. Is he like the best of all time at his position?
I'd say he's top
He's good.
Top
He's very
five?
good.
Top 5 maybe.
An autograph pic. How big is the photo again?
It doesn't say diesel, but I would imagine looking at it as
Like an 8x10 kind of thing?
It's big. I think it's probably 3.5 foot in
Oh,
height.
so like a full-size poster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a full-size poster.
I'm going to guess that this autographed J.J. Watt poster is listed on Facebook Marketplace for $110.
You're a little low. Don't look on the text
I was
line.
gonna go lower than that because I thought it was like $65.
Zach guesses 99 on the stream. JB guesses 70. Brad guesses 225. A couple of text on the text line, and some good guesses there. One says 125. One says 175. One says 189.95.
So I said what? I think I said 110.
Said a 110. Yeah,
110, and it's low. Let's go 250.
175.
Okay.
175, which I think is probably somewhat close to right.
I think
By
that's
the
something
way,
you could get a little less.
Maybe so.
Pay a little less for.
Shout out to the texter from the 321. I'm not sure which area code that is with a 321, but texter, you hit it nailed on the head. Nailed on the head.
One of these days, Cole,
175.
we're going to find an item that's for sale in the upstate that's going to be one of our Tolos. Like, oh,
I
that's
thought
my
about-
item.
I thought about that earlier.
One of these days.
Yeah.
Okay, Cole, let's move on to a Carolina Panthers souvenir ticket from their 1995 inaugural season played at Clemson's Death Valley.
Yeah.
It looks like it was game 3 of that season against the Rams. It looks to be in okay shape. It's not protected in a case of any kind. It's also not graded. It looks like there's some very slight kind of discoloration down at the bottom of the ticket.
Yeah.
But it's in pretty good shape. Like the graphic on the front looks really nice. So it's a Panthers souvenir ticket from their 95 inaugural season.
That sounds cool, but it's just a ticket, right? I know a lot of people over the years do collect tickets.
Zach Breeze says $7.
Zach, that's wrong of you, man. That's wrong of you. Brad says $1. Y'all are terrible.
Give you about $3.50.
Y'all Panther hate. I'm sorry. Yeah, Panther and Clemson haters possible. You know what? It's not going to be much.
It's not autographed.
Yeah, I'm going to go $45.
Wow. If you made that offer, they'd take it because it's listed for $50. So there you go.
Yeah.
Cole was right on.
That
right
would
on
be
the
cool
money.
to have. It'd be cool to have, but is it worth? Like, here's what I think about. $50 is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of if you're poor or rich, $50 is $50. Would you pay $50 to have a ticket?
Maybe if it was already framed and it was in like pristine condition.
I think if you went, it holds so much more value.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know.
If you're like a Panthers season ticket holder, that's been we've had. I think Rick calls in and says he's been a PSL holder since they played at Clemson their inaugural season. So
Does it
may
have anything Clemson on it? The ticket?
The background, like the graphic behind, it's like a player.
Yeah.
No, sorry, it's like a panther, like an amorphized a human panther kind of thing. And then behind it, the stadium kind of resembles Death Valley. Like it's not a photo of Death Valley. It's sort of a graphic cartoon of Death Valley.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it would be cool to have.
But
I just don't know for $50.
To me, it's more like a $25 item.
Yeah, that's a lot. All right, I'm deciding which one. Let's see here. I'm going to go with this one. This is Diesel. This one's going to be interesting. This is a full-size helmet, okay? Full-size helmet we're talking about here. And it is autographed by Terrell Davis. So this full-sized autographed Terrell Davis helmet is listed on Facebook. Terrell Davis played for the Denver Broncos. And it's full-size. It has the Hall of Fame, like where he signed it and also wrote Hall of Fame in the year he was inducted. So it looks really, really good. It's a kind of a throwback Broncos helmet. It's not the white logo like they have now. It's orange. How much do you think this is worth on Facebook Marketplace? Or how much do you think it's listed for?
Well, we even have a Terrell Davis stand-up poster somewhere in the building. We had a bunch of them in the studios.
I think it's outside in the hallway.
Is it outside in the
Yeah,
hallway?
I think I hadn't seen it in a while. But I forget about that.
Do people are people still really that into Terrell Davis? It's been a while since he's played. I'm going to say that this helmet is listed on Facebook Marketplace for $115.
Low.
I'm low. I need to go up. What? 200?
Low. Low.
Are we in insanity land? What's going on?
Low.
$500.
Originally listed for $400. Now it's dropped to $350. Look, Terrell Davis, really good player.
Yeah.
But $350 for a helmet.
But it's been a while since he played, right? Like, do you really see the market on Terrell Davis items increasing?
Yeah. You got time for 2 quick calls?
Yeah, we do.
Dewey wants to chime in. What's up, Dewey?
Yes, I wouldn't pay for no money for any of that. Because Facebook Marketplace, it's all cheap and it's fake. But I did meet my girlfriend off of Facebook Marketplace.
What's her
You
name?
did.
Got cheap too, but I met her.
Got her cheap too. God.
Did she have like a little blow up thing in the back, or is it?
Ooh.
I didn't see anything blow up. But
All right.
Okay.
she was
Thanks.
kind of big though. She was big.
Thank you, Dewey.
Rick and Greer to follow when you get one for the price of two on Wire to Wire. What's up, Rick?
Okay, are y'all only doing sports items? I've got an item nobody can touch.
Okay.
I got married in 1982.
The first time?
Lord rest. Look, no, that's the only time. Lord rest her soul. And we went on our honeymoon at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And I'm a big, big Frank Sinatra fan.
Oh, yeah. Rat Pack.
So we got there on Friday night. Saturday night, she had tickets for the Rat Pack.
Oh yeah.
So we go in the Sands Hotel. We sit down. Sammy's there. Frank's there. Dean's there. And they start singing. Sammy got sick for some reason. Guess who else was there?
Who's that?
Liza Minnelli.
Liza Minnelli.
She's another one of the Rat Pack.
I forgot about
So
that.
what I did is I took a picture with all 4 of them.
No way.
I got a picture.
No way.
And got them to sign each corner
No.
of the picture. And I got tickets from the ticket that came with the concert, and I stapled it to
Wow.
the picture. I still got
Rick,
it.
I want to see that. I want to see it in person.
Yeah, you need to
got
prove
it.
it.
Rick, I've
need
got
to
to
prove
see
it,
that.
Rick.
That's legendary.
Now another one, I couldn't get the other guy. He's an asshole. The other guy from the Rat Pack was there. Peter Lawford. He was one of the Rat Pack, and I think he was dating Liza Minnelli at the time. He wouldn't sign. Uh-oh.
That's better that time.
Thank you for fixing that, Rick. We got to.
Hey, let me ask you a question real quick, Rick, before you run. The Rat Pack in Vegas, did you go to the Golden Steer?
What is the Golden Steer?
Oldest steakhouse establishment, restaurant, whatever you want to call it, in Las Vegas. Quick background, look it up when you get off the phone. It's where the Rat... It's where
I want to go to the Bunny Club.
No. Listen, the Golden
That's
Steer.
in Reno.
Yeah, the Golden Steer is where the Rat Pack used to meet. They had a shootout there. The Golden Steer is still there. It's a steakhouse. I've been. It's phenomenal. It's the top steakhouse in Vegas, the oldest one on the Strip.
Is it good?
Yes, phenomenal.
Next time I go to Vegas, I'll go because Sands is not there anymore. They blew it up, and I forget what's standing on. Some other place is standing on where the Sands used to be.
Interesting.
Thanks for the call,
phone
Rick.
call, Rick.
That's a legendary item. If he really
It
has
is, but we know that Rick will
that. The Rat
embellish.
Pack and a picture with a Rat Pack. I don't know.
Are you sure you didn't just take a photo with a couple of Mouseketeers, Rick?
That would be. I got to see that.
Last one for you here, Cole. Before we run off to break,
Okay.
this is this is a really awesome item. You wouldn't. It's kind of one of a kind here. This is an ESPN production set sign from their college football Last Six / New Year's Six series. It's about 3 feet long and 1.5 feet tall. It dates to the 2015 season, which would be the second year of the college football playoff. It says here that this was a centerpiece of their desk on set. It's in great shape. It's 3-dimensional. It looks awesome. I'm going to take a photo of this and show it to the stream so you can see what I'm talking about. No price is going to be visible here, okay?
I'm ready.
So here is the sign that's available.
So it's the real thing?
It's the real thing. There's a photo proving that it's not just a flat poster. It's kind of raised. The logo is kind of raised.
And did you say where it was?
It says it was from their production centerpiece. Wow. It was a centerpiece on their desk on set.
That's cool.
That is really cool.
It's full size, like as big as this desk, probably.
3 by 5. 3 by 3 by 1.5.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one. I would probably say it might be worth something. I think it might be worth.
Unfortunately, it doesn't have like college football playoff on it.
Okay.
So there's no identifying markers to what year it is.
I think I'm gonna be way off here. I'm gonna guess $250.
You're way off.
Yeah. So
I'm
way
go
low.
North of there.
Oh, so it's high.
You got to go up.
I said I thought it'd be worth something. I just didn't know how much. $600.
A little rich. It's listed at $500.
Is it worth that?
$500.
Is it? I mean, I don't know. That's a good question there.
It's cool though.
It looks good.
It doesn't light up. It doesn't have any other special features, I guess. But it was on the desk for the college football playoff.
Pretty cool. Not gonna lie. That's
cool.
pretty cool. All right, Diesel. When we run back, when we come back, we got to run to a break, and we'll come back on the other side with a little bit of looking in the future. There are several odds right now when it comes to sporting events and the futures. The odds on college basketball championship, NBA championship, heck, even the Super Bowl for next year. Super Bowl 60 is already out. We'll do our best guess. When we look at these odds of the future, we'll do our best guess as to if they will actually happen or not. Tolos, want to hear from you as well. That is next right here on the Fan Up Station. I don't know what you do, Diesel, on a day-to-day basis to look into the future. If you use a wand or a magic 8-ball, everybody has different tactics.
I use
right?
hallucinogenics.
Well, that's okay too. Whatever you want to use to look in the future, that's what we're going to do in this very segment. We look into the future when it comes to the odds-on favorites in several different sporting leagues, including college and pro. And then we ask the question, okay, they're favored, but will it happen? That's where we're going in this very segment. I want to let you Tolos know that coming up at 6 o'clock, we're going to get into an NIL hearing with Shane Beamer today. A Clemson player also on the stand took a little shot at Shane Beamer while he was up there. And Clemson settling with the ACC. We'll dive into all of that in the 6 o'clock segment, so turn it on and leave it on. So future odds, and will it happen? Let's start in college basketball, where we're hot and heavy right now. Diesel, the number one team, Auburn Tigers, who play tonight against A&M. I believe Auburn's 4.5-point favorites last time I looked. They are the odds-on favorite to win it all in March Madness this season at plus 278. So, again, you bet $100, you win $278. That's how that works. Not the best price there, and those are pretty heavy odds for Auburn. So the Tigers are favored, but will it happen? Will Auburn win the national championship? Want you to answer that, but also want to open this up to the Tolos. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663 is the number you can text. Also live on the stream where you can hop in the comments section. Auburn winning it all. Will it happen, Diesel?
I mean, they're a very good team. Auburn has gone on long streaks over the course of this season, Cole, where they are obviously one of, if not the best team in college basketball. It's hard to bet against them. It's hard, especially if you're, obviously, if you are betting, if you are putting money on the line. Then again, they did lose to Duke, the team that's sitting right behind them in the odds, in the futures here. It's tough to say, Cole. I might put a little bit of money on both just to sort of hedge my bet and say, hey, one of these two teams could win this whole thing.
Got a good shot.
I feel like I have a good shot of making some money off of that. I'm putting in, $200, and no matter what, I'm coming out with a profit.
Yeah, you would be.
Assuming one of those two
wins. If one
wins.
of them win, I would say, if those are the odds, and the question is, but will it happen? I would say no, because I don't believe, Diesel, that the odds-on favorite is the easiest way to make money. What I mean is, it's too easy. It's a trap. They want you to take Auburn because the price is low. You don't have to risk a lot. I think there's going to be a team that's very good that wins it all. I don't think it's going to be a Cinderella, but Auburn's too easy of a pick. They're amazing, but I do believe that some teams may put an immense amount of pressure on Jahani Broome and may figure out Auburn a little bit down the stretch.
But hasn't every team tried to do that all season long?
That's easier said than done. It's easier said than done. But I'm going to go the field, even though it's a little risky, on Auburn winning it all. Duke, as you mentioned, Diesel, is the second favorite to win the men's college basketball tournament, plus 305. Not that much difference in price if you were to take Duke. We just talked about that. Clemson, if you are a diehard Clemson fan out there, or you just wanted to get a bet at a good price, Clemson's plus 5,290 to win the men's college basketball tournament, meaning if you put $100 on the Clemson Tigers to win it all, you would win $5,290. Diesel, but will it happen?
Look, I mean, knowing that Clemson plays really efficient basketball and they are top 15 in the country when it comes to offensive and defensive production.
Yep.
Kind of being a jack of all trades kind of team where they do everything well. They don't do anything elite, but they do everything well. I think, Cole, when you're in a tournament situation where somebody goes off, and let's just say, for example, Chase Hunter went off and put up 30 points one night.
Yeah.
And he's got to play again the next night or 2 nights later. It's tough on the legs. And it's hard to be able to put up those kind of performances when you've got to win the round of 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2. You got to win 6 games to win a national championship. I think it really does help teams that spread their offensive production out to a lot of different guys. Number one, it keeps anyone from getting too wiped out and exhausted. And if somebody can't perform to that level on back-to-back nights, it's proven that someone else can step up. I think that one's worth throwing a little bit of money at just because the payout is so huge.
UConn is the favorite to win the women's college basketball tournament in 2025 plus 288. Will that happen? I think there's a very good shot. UCLA, in my mind, Diesel will have something to say about that. And then the Lady Gamecocks, who are plus 300, not far behind them, to win the women's college basketball tournament. That's going to be a tough one to decide on this year because not to say there weren't good teams last year, but there are a lot of really, really good teams this year. UCLA's tough. UConn, it's gonna be tough.
I mean, having I don't know if you have it in front of you. What are the odds for UCLA to win this thing? I mean, I can't imagine it's far off.
No, it wasn't far off.
Yeah, I can't far off from the 288 for UConn and the plus 300.
Very
for
close.
South Carolina. That just goes to show there's a lot of elite basketball. This is not college basketball, women's college basketball of 15 years ago when it was UConn and everyone else.
The Boston Celtics are the current favorite to win the NBA title plus 212. Oklahoma City right behind them as the second favorite plus 219. The LA Dodgers, imagine that. The roster that has been bought are the favorite to win the 2025 World Series plus 312. Atlanta is way behind them. The Braves are plus 965 to win the 2025 World Series. The odds for Super Bowl 60, Diesel, are out. Even though the game was just played, the Eagles are favored to win it all again in 2026, plus 558. And your Carolina Panthers, if you are bold enough to throw a little money on the Panthers to win it all, they're plus 11,200, meaning a $50 bet would win $5,600.
Hey, guys, I'm Bryce Young, and I'm going to go hoist the Lombardi Trophy. I
promise. Come on. He's gotten a little bit deeper voice lately. I need a little bit. College football.
Guys,
there you go.
This is Bryce Young.
That's better. Ohio State. They just won it all. Once again, favored to win the college football national championship next season, plus 263. Georgia is plus 316. Texas is plus 290. Clemson is plus 1,053. To win the college football championship next season. I think
in Arch we trust at Texas, I guess.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think Clemson would be worth throwing some sprinkling some dough on there.
What if Arch Manning comes out and is just average? And they say
won't
to
win
themselves, we ran off Quinn Ewers for this. We ran off a guy that got us to the semifinals.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but it could. And then lastly, Diesel. Here's something we can park on for a quick second. Here's what's interesting. NFL draft odds. The first overall pick. If you guessed who the favorite, according to Vegas, right now is to be drafted number 1, you would say
Cam Ward.
And you would be right.
All right.
Cam Ward is minus 313. Now, let me scroll down here. Abdul Carter Diesel is plus 154. Ashton Jeanty is plus 8,120. I'm trying to see who else is minus money.
To go first?
To go first.
Hey, who throws money at the Ashton Jeanty pick?
I'm looking right now, and just so you know, the only player, Diesel, that's minus money to be taken number 1 is Cam Ward. Let me double check to make sure I didn't say that wrong. Cam Ward's minus 313, which is a heavy favorite. Shedeur Sanders is plus 975. From minus 313 to plus 975 is a huge gap.
So you got to bet minus 330?
313 for 313.
Cam Ward. So you got to bet $313 to win $100.
Yeah. It's a big risk. And then let's see. There was also Travis Hunter. He was on here. He is plus 975. No, that's Shedeur Sanders. I'm sorry.
Abdul Carter is where?
Abdul Carter is not. What's fascinating, Abdul Carter's plus 154. So
basically even money.
That'd be an interesting play right there. If you wanted to put a little money on the draft, Abdul Carter at plus 154 is the better play compared to Cam Ward because Cam Ward's way too expensive at minus 313. Travis Hunter at plus 609 is interesting. I don't think it's going to happen, but in terms of a good bet, you can sprinkle a little bit and win a lot, plus 609. But Cam Ward, man, on this particular app that I'm looking on, Diesel, is
totally legal and legit.
100%, of course. What do you think? I run some kind of illegal gambling operation here? Yeah, it's a heavy favorite. Cam Ward, that's interesting because we looked at a couple of mock drafts and the Mel Kipers of the world, the Daniel Jeremiahs of the world, even though Vegas has Cam Ward as a favorite, they think otherwise because that draft you brought up last week wasn't. Who was it? Abdul going one now?
Yes. Let me look and see what the absolute latest.
Because I don't understand why they wouldn't line up with Vegas. Lance Zerline's latest mock has Abdul Carter going one. So there you go. I mean, people are projecting Abdul Carter to go one now.
Yeah, the most recent, and again, this was 8 days ago. This was before the information about Abdul Carter's, what was it, stress fracture or stress injury in his foot. Before this information came out, this was 8 days ago. Mel Kiper, who I know that Kane is not high on this guy's opinion, he has Abdul Carter going 1, Cam Ward 2, Travis Hunter 3, Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU 4.
So as of right now, it looks like there's a general consensus, Diesel, that Abdul Carter's going to 1. Okay, $25 on Abdul Carter right now would win $38. That's interesting. That is interesting. I don't know why that doesn't align. It'll be interesting to see if that changes, though, as we get closer to the draft.
CBSSports.com, last updated today.
Yep.
Cole. Ryan Wilson has Cam Ward 1, Abdul Carter 2.
Wow.
Chris Trapasso has Shedeur Sanders 1, Travis Hunter 2. I think if I scroll down, I got some more. Okay, Mike Renner, Cam Ward, and then Abdul. Josh Edwards, Abdul, Cam Ward. So they're all over the place.
How about that?
They are all over the place, undecided as of right now of who will be the number 1 overall pick. When we come back, Cole, this is just one of the best heartwarming stories that you're going to hear in a long, long time. Players using their NIL money to make a big impact. You love to see stories like this. We'll talk about it on the other side. You know, God, I
You
just
did it.
too.
I rubbed off on you.
You know, there's a common misconception, Cole, that all Gen Zers are just selfish little you-know-whats, and they don't care about anyone but themselves, especially when you make them athletes who make a lot of money off of name, image, and likeness. But the University of Tennessee basketball team under Rick Barnes has proven exactly the opposite, Cole. When in a production meeting for a Tennessee basketball game, Rick Barnes, head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers basketball team, presented Dick Vitale, who we all know and love as just the, I guess, probably guiding light of college basketball, just the extreme positivity side of things, presented him with a check of $10,000 for Dickie V's V Foundation. And these players got together, threw some cash together, and made this donation all on their own volition. It didn't come from Rick Barnes. It's not his money. The players did it themselves. And, man, you got to feel good about the players on that Tennessee basketball team and their unselfishness to give up $10,000 of their own money.
That's awesome.
And we don't know. I mean, could you argue that it's a little light considering that some of these kids are getting a tremendous amount of money?
No, I'm not going to.
I wouldn't look that gift horse in the mouth. I would say, you know what? We appreciate the team for putting this kind of money together.
$10,000 is a lot of money.
10 G's. Dickie V has battled multiple types of cancer multiple times, including lymphoma, precancerous dysplasia, and ulcerous lesions on his vocal cords. It took him out of what he loves the most, being on the sidelines, calling games. He has been declared cancer-free now for the third time. This happened back in December, right as he was calling the Clemson-Duke basketball game. And it's awesome to see Dick Vitale back on the sidelines. It's awesome to know that he is cancer-free again, and it is awesome to see the Tennessee men's basketball players donating $10,000 of their own money to Dickie V's foundation.
100%. That's sorry, I didn't mean to have that up.
Yeah.
That's 100% awesome that they did that. And to your point about it not being enough, if people were to question that, look, it's $10,000 that foundation didn't have before, and those players didn't have to do that. Everybody's entitled to make their money. Nobody's entitled to have to give it back. And for those players to do that, man, that says a lot.
You know,
I hope, Diesel, that more players in different sports, college football, college baseball, and I know, NIL doesn't affect other sports like it does basketball and football, but I hope this is something that other players, especially in college football, can see and get behind as well.
If there was ever a trend to get started, Cole, all the stupid trends like planking and owling and the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. How many people did the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge without donating a dime to ALS research? This is one of those things that I would love to see jump up, to see, get some momentum as a trend. Anytime Dick Vitale is calling a game, players from that team throwing a couple bucks into a common fund and donating it to whoever, whether it be the Dickie V Foundation, the V Foundation, or not. I think that's huge, man. And I think it says a lot about the players on that team.
It really does. Tolos, if you have not heard some audio, if you didn't know, there was an NIL hearing today with Shane Beamer. We'll have some audio from that. Jordan Kay at the State newspaper did a great job pulling some audio, posting it on Twitter. We've had him on the show, good friend of the show. We'll give you a little update on what happened today with the NIL hearing with Shane Beamer being present, a little shots fired from a former Clemson player as well, and Clemson settling with the ACC. We've touched on that. We'll dive more into that on the other side. He's Diesel. I am Cole Bryson, and we begin our number 4 of the program next. the final hour of Wire to Wire. Not like ever, I don't think.
I hope not.
Unless you know something. I mean, unless you've been told something that I don't know.
Wait, you didn't get the severance package?
If it's like some of the coaches' severance packages, I'll tell you and I'll tell our boss and everybody here. The buyouts, we need buyouts like those college coaches have is what we need.
Yeah, here we get a hearty handshake and a good luck.
Do we get a handshake? That's asking a little.
Actually, you get a cardboard box. I'm kidding. You have to bring your own.
Bring your own bring your own cardboard box and fill your crap up and get out. It's the final hour of Wire to Wire today. By the way, this is show number 230.
Bam.
How about that? 230. 230. Let's see how many hours of radio you and I have done in this very short time.
Well, you got to subtract 1 because we've only done 3 hours of today's show.
919.
Wow.
919. 919 now. 919 hours of radio. And a lot more coming your way, Tolos.
That means 40 more show days, and we will have been on the air together for 1,000 hours.
Yeah, and we're not far at all now that we're in March from our 1-year anniversary. Let's see when that is. March 25th, which is a Tuesday, 3 weeks from today. We've got to be thinking about what we're going to do on our 1-year anniversary 3 weeks from this very day, what we're going to do on that show, Diesel, because it's going to be you celebrate, right? That's what you do on anniversaries. You celebrate anniversaries. So we might have our cake and eat it too. I don't know exactly what else we have planned that day, but
well, if you go by the traditional, here's what you get someone on wedding anniversaries, Cole, the first traditional wedding anniversary gift is paper. So you get somebody something that it can be.
Talking dollar bills, man.
I could, you can get a lot of different things. You could get a photograph or a poster.
That might be a little rated R. I mean, what I'm going to do
is I'm going to screenshot Cole Bryson running shirtless through the parking lot.
Yeah,
print
that's
it
a
out,
good one.
Blow it up, make it a big poster.
That's a good one.
And that's paper.
You know what? You and I should not get each other anything. What should happen is the Tolos.
Oh,
should
I
be
like
the
this
one.
idea better.
Yeah.
I like
the
this idea
Tolos
better.
should be the ones getting us the 1-year anniversary gift.
Except they'll kind of take the Judge Smales perspective and say, you'll get nothing and like it.
I'll tell you what we ought to do. We ought to set up outside that day, have drop by. I mean, I'm serious. The Tolos, for 1 year of putting up with you Tolos out there. No, I'm kidding. We love you. We should just have a big party.
What do you think Dewey's paper gift would be?
I don't want to know.
Cheap toilet paper?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. I'd like to see Tolos. How about that? I'd like to see Tolos on our 1 year. Stop by. What is it? Stop by and say hi.
And say hi.
God, don't even get us started on that. Inside joke. No, we got to do something. We got to do something for our 1 year anniversary. And then, not far off from that, we will have a chance to see our Tolos in person because we're going to be live, Diesel, for the NFL draft, not just one day, not just previewing the draft, but breaking down what happened. Thursday is the draft, April sometime, late April. And then on Friday, we'll be live as well at Bimini's.
Bimini's Seafood Restaurant, just off of Pelham Road in Greenville, kind of over near the mall area. Love Bimini's.
So good.
Love seafood. Are you an oysters guy?
So let me tell you this.
Will you eat? I know you have very underdeveloped palate. And
I love seafood, by the way.
But it's not fried. You'll eat fried oysters. Would you eat raw oysters off the half shell?
A long time ago, tried oysters, and I mean like a long time ago. Raw, on a cracker, with like little hot sauce.
Yep.
It's been a while. And I did not like it then. Now, I will tell you, I eat a lot of wild stuff, like wild game and things like that. I'm not opposed to trying them now. I think I would prefer them steamed, Rockefeller, or however you do them. But
well, I tell you, I used to think oysters were gross. The consistency is still gross because let's be real, a raw oyster looks like a booger. Yeah. Looks like a booger in a little scooped out rock. It does not look appetizing at all.
It's gooey.
I hated it, but when you put it on, and it also depends on where they come from, right? Depending on where they come from depends on like how salty they are, like how briny and salty they are. That certainly changes the flavor. Apparently, like Virginia oysters are a little sweeter because somehow, some way, the ocean's a little less salty and briny there, as opposed to West Coast oysters where it's a little brinier, I think. But
I'll try it.
I used to hate them. My wife gets them all the time. She loves them. And then just 2 weeks ago, we were at Bridgeway Station in Malden, and we're at this little restaurant. They have oysters, and I scarfed down a half dozen of them and loved every second of it.
Do you like mussels?
I don't eat them enough. I don't like clams. I don't eat a lot of clams.
Mussels are amazing.
There's how many different things fall into the mussels category? Scallops.
No. Scallops is not a mussel.
Okay.
I love scallops.
I do like scallops.
See, there's not much seafood that I don't like. I love seafood. Scallops are fantastic. Mussels, man.
But you won't eat sushi.
That's not seafood.
It can be.
That's gross. That's raw fish that you crazy.
Yeah, but you'll eat a raw oyster.
No, I said I might. Keyword might. No, I'll eat sushi as long as it's cooked.
Then it's not sushi.
Well, it says sushi on the menu. Cooked sushi. If you
stay away from the gas station sushi.
If you don't tell me it's raw, I'll probably. Now, I will say this: at the company Christmas party, I ate a ton of sushi. A ton.
So I did trick my wife into eating a Southern delicacy, a North Carolina delicacy. You probably already know what food I'm talking about here. No, not Rocky Mountain oysters. But she, for the longest time, refused to eat this food item.
Caviar?
No. Oh. No. This is a Western North Carolina staple, and I grew up on it. I loved it.
I don't know where you're going here.
She refused to eat it, and I gave it to her once. She had it. She ate it. She liked it. And then when I told her what it was, she was grossed out and said never again.
I don't know. I still can't figure Western North Carolina. What?
Niece's liver mush.
I love liver mush.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I love it.
It's great. It's to her. It's just the name. Like if liver mush had a better name, it would be better, right?
It's so good. I have. There's a local restaurant in Spartanburg that has good breakfast. Yeah. And man, I'm telling you,
is there anything better
hard
than a liver mush, egg, and cheese sandwich, mayo on one side, mustard on the other side?
I'll eat it just as is without a sandwich.
Well, I love it that way too.
It's good. But again, I'll try it. I like most seafood, but except for oysters are going to be the question. But when we go to Bimini's, I'll try them.
There you go.
I'd rather do the Low Country boil though, and go shrimp and crab leg. I'd rather do that, but I'll try anything.
Well, Low Country boil is extra salty.
So good.
It is delicious.
God, so good. So anyways, we'll be at Bimini's for the draft coming up in April, and then let's see, tomorrow's Wednesday will be on Poinsett Highway, 1500 Poinsett Highway in Greenville. Tolos, just so you know, I campaigned for this. We had not been to Poinsett Highway, Diesel, which is the heart of Greenville. It's like, bam, right there. And we're finally going to be there tomorrow. First time you and I have been to that store.
I've been to that store before. It's a fun one, man. It's always packed. There's so many people who live over on that side of town. One scary thing is that our boss lives on that side of town, Cole. So there's a chance we may get a drop in.
No, he's out of town.
You sure about that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's on vacation. We're good. No visit from the boss.
That means
tomorrow.
we can go to his house.
That's right.
I love it.
Guy wants to chime in. Anyways, before we get to Guy, let me finish my thought. Going to be at Poinsett Highway tomorrow. Monday we'll be in Asheville for the SoCon Championship. We'll have one more Ingles remote, and then in April we'll be at Ingles twice and Bimini's twice. So plenty of chances for you Tolos to come out and say hi. Stop by and say hi. Plenty of chance. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that.
No, come by and see us tomorrow because we have Fan Upstate gear to give away. We always have a couple of hats. I don't have mine on me.
Gift cards too.
We have gift cards to give away. Ingles for Ingles. We have Fan Upstate T-shirt to give away. Always some other little random odds and ends that end up on the table that we would love for you to walk home with. But those fitted Fan Upstate hats. Those are the hot ticket items. That's what you really, really want because it looks fantastic. It fits great, super soft. That is the best item that we give away at our events, and we usually only have 2 of them to give away. So if you want to get that hat, you better get there early tomorrow.
Poinsett, baby.
Poinsett Highway
It's like
in
Cherry
Greenville.
Dell, Travelers. It's like a big melting pot right there. I can't wait. Guy wants to chime in on the phone lines at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-3263-663. What's up, Guy?
Hey, just want to give you a Philly food before I see you. And if I see you at Bimini's, I'm not going to eat half the stuff you guys talk about. But have you ever heard of Scrapple?
Scrapple is like it's like a kissing cousin to liver mush. It's similar but
Yes,
but
it is.
different.
Okay. Right. And again, I mean, I grew up on it, but I tried it now. I can't handle it anymore.
Pork,
But,
pork scraps and cornmeal. Is that right, what I see on Google?
Yeah, well, I mean, go to, and I don't want to give the name of any particular food market, but you go right around where the country sausage and the souse and the scrapple. I mean, it's all basically discarded animal parts from any other whatever. But okay, that was my that was my 2 cents.
You said
I'll
you
try and see you at Bimini, and you're not going to get me to eat anything because the only sushi I can eat is vegetarian.
No. It's not sushi. It's seafood. They don't have sushi there. It's
No, I can't. A lot of the stuff in the shell I can't handle. I have like you said with the raw oysters. It kind of like the same with egg yolk with me.
Okay.
There's just stuff I can't handle.
What about fish?
Love it.
Okay, Bimini's has good fish. I love it. I love it too. And Guy,
Remind me of the Bimini's dates, and I'll see you there.
we'll do it. It's the NFL draft. Are you from Philly, Guy?
I'm born in Philly, raised in Jersey.
Okay, I knew it was something like that. I need to write that down so I'll remember. Appreciate the phone call, Guy.
Interesting
Thank
much.
you, Guy.
We have some
Good.
great callers.
This was a mistake, Cole. I just Googled souse. I mean, I know I've seen it before,
I don't know
but
what that
this
is.
is the
I'm not gonna Google.
this is the grossest thing I've ever seen.
I just love when you type in scrapple and it says pork scraps, like the head, heart, liver, skin, and brains. Like that God,
That's what you feed to dogs.
I shouldn't have Googled that, but it's liver mush, same thing, right?
But liver mush is the same thing. Liver mush is mostly liver, but it also says that it can contain pig head parts like snouts and ears too, cornmeal and seasonings like pepper and sage. Souse looks like
What's your
straight
name?
dog food, and there's chunks of all kinds of things in this. It looks like if you took like a fruitcake. You know what a fruitcake looks like, right?
Yeah.
With the big chunks of fruit in there.
It's nasty, by the way.
That's what souse looks like, but it's made of pork parts.
No thanks.
That's gross.
No, we don't need to read.
Like-
So you just got to eat it without reading the ingredients.
Look, I get look, the best food in the world most of the time comes from like the poorest areas in the world because you got to figure out how to make cheap cuts of meat taste delicious. And lots of credit to the people hundreds of years ago who figured out how to make pork liver and snouts and ears edible.
Tastes good.
To the point where you and I will still eat it and say, that's
well, that
pretty
just
good.
goes to show you add cornmeal to it and fry it. You know?
Grind it up small enough, nobody knows what's in it.
Jersey Joe wants to weigh in on the phone lines. What's up, Jersey Joe?
Gentlemen, how we doing this evening?
Fantastic.
Grossed out now that I just Googled souse.
Well, I heard you guys talk about Scrapple, and Scrapple is the bomb.
Really?
See, I grew up on liver mush, and even I somehow think Scrapple is gross. And I know it's basically the same thing.
What's the difference, Jersey Joe? I mean, what is it?
Well, I never had liver mush before, so I really don't know.
Oh, really? It might be very, very similar. Let me ask you, do you buy Scrapple around here?
Yes, at the Lowe's Foods.
Okay. You have to try it from Ingles, see if Ingles has it. I don't know if they carry it or not. I'll have to look tomorrow and see. That's just something like I'll eat if I'm out somewhere, but I don't buy it and prepare it.
Yeah, Googling what Scrapple looks like, it looks exactly like liver mush. I
Does
can't
it?
really
Yeah,
tell the
just
difference in what they
It
are.
might. I'm sorry,
Slice it
Joe.
up and brown it up in a pan.
I was going to say it
That's
might
it.
be like, you know how different regions of the country,
Yeah.
it's the same food, it's just different name.
Like-
I bet that's what it is.
Like Scrapple looks a little more tan. Liver mush has kind of A grayish brown.
Might be cooked in a different oil, something like,
Could be.
something just very basic. Jersey Joe, appreciate the phone call, man.
Thank you, Joe.
Not a problem.
That's interesting. Really interesting. But anyways, 15 minutes later, I love it. You start talking about random stuff, and the interaction's great. I mean, it's fantastic. Jordan K had some really good stuff today, Diesel, as South Carolina's Shane Beamer appeared on Capitol Hill as a witness at a House hearing today, telling lawmakers in his written testimony that if they do not act, college sports will be destroyed by never-ending litigation and conflicting state laws. A couple of pieces of audio. Here is Congressman Russell Fry, who is a South Carolina grad, introducing Shane Beamer today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored to introduce the head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, Shane Beamer. Good to see you, sir. Since taking over as head coach of the University of South Carolina in December of 2020, Coach Beamer has led the program to historic success, securing the most wins through 4 seasons of any coach in the Carolina football history. This past season, Coach Beamer was his most successful yet, guiding the Gamecocks to 9 wins, including a win over Clemson University. I'm sorry, sir. And earning the SEC Coach of the Year honors from both the Associated Press and the USA. You know I had to do this, right? As the son of legendary coach Frank Beamer, Shane has been immersed in college athletics his entire life. All
right, so I'm going to pull him down, and we're going to get to Shane because we don't care about a guy with the last name Fry. Or do we? I mean, I don't know. That's a cool last name.
And a guy who's just gassing up Shane Beamer for how long?
He's gassing him up. A minute and a half. And then here's a quick 37 seconds of Shane Beamer shouting out Lenoris Sellers.
Going forward, I'll use the example of Lenoris Sellers. He's our starting quarterback. He will be a Heisman Trophy candidate next season. He will have an opportunity to play in the NFL. He is currently compensated very well from a name, image, and likeness standpoint. But on his own, he's already reached out to companies in the city of Columbia about doing a summer internship with them. Unbeknownst to me, but here's a young man that understands that football is not going to last forever and wants to do everything in his power to take advantage of the educational experience in Columbia also.
Okay, thank you.
So we're not going to bore you to death with audio and this letter that Shane Beamer wrote, but I do appreciate Shane Beamer trying to help the cause of fixing college athletics, Diesel.
So what is he hoping to accomplish when he says college football is essentially an existential crisis? And if litigation continues unchecked, we're going to be in a bad spot. Specifically, what is he hoping to accomplish here?
So here's the letter. It's not very long. And I will read the letter that Shane Beamer wrote. This is the hearing before the United States House Committee on Energy and Commerce, Tuesday, March 4th. Written testimony from Shane Beamer. Good morning. My name is Shane Beamer, and I am the head football coach at the University of South Carolina. It is a privilege to speak to you today about the future of college sports. I have spent the last 26 years coaching college football. Outside of my family, developing college football student athletes has been my life's work. As some of you may know, my father was the head coach at Virginia Tech. I myself played high school football and baseball and went on to play football at the college level, competing for a football national championship alongside my father. The experiences that I've had as both a student athlete and as a coach have fundamentally shaped me into the man I am today. We are at a critical crossroads in college athletics, and quite simply, we need your help. The system is long overdue change. The current situation is unsustainable. A national bipartisan federal law will provide equal opportunity for all student athletes to benefit from NIL and create a uniform standard to ensure we're all playing by the same rules. I believe we can all agree that college student-athlete experience is worth preserving. A college education is invaluable, especially given the reality that less than 2% of college student-athletes advance to professional sports. A federal law codifying the settlement will maintain an education-based model for college sports while ensuring the opportunity for student-athletes to earn a degree and the tools necessary to be successful in life after sports. He finishes by saying, action by this Congress will also provide much-needed stability essential to college sports and expand current benefits enjoyed by many student-athletes, free tuition, room, and board, educational grants, academic support and tutoring, medical and mental health support, nutrition support, life skills development, superior coaching and training, and extended medical coverage. If you do not act, college sports will be destroyed by never-ending litigation and conflicting state laws. And designating student athletes as employees is not the right path because an employment model will drastically reduce the number of sports a school is able to offer. In contrast, a federal law will guarantee the future of Olympic sports that will help develop future Olympians. In some, college sport is, in some, we need your help. The stakes are high. I'm paraphrasing this last paragraph. And the future of our nation's students will be decided by you. Thank you for your time and consideration. So basically, that last paragraph is me, or I'm paraphrasing Shane Beamer basically saying thank you. So that is the letter he wrote.
So an education-based model, and that part really kind of stood out to me, is Shane Beamer basically saying we need to hang on to the collegiate model that we've had. I do want to know, I wish he would have gone into more detail as to exactly why he thinks that an employment-based structure would eliminate a lot of sports from college. I don't know if going to an employment-based model means that Title IX would no longer apply, if that's the case, or if that's the interpretation.
Yeah.
I would understand how and why he could arrive at that position.
I don't know if we can pull it off, but I'm going to reach out to Steve Fink because, to your point about loving to know more, Shane Beamer needs to do media availability about this to expound a little further. So it'd be great if we could get him on next week to talk about this because, Diesel, that's a packed letter that he wrote,
right.
And I think he would like to expound a little further on that. So it'd be cool to see if we can get him on next week.
Staying with the South Carolina Gamecocks, you and I had a great conversation earlier with John Whittle of the Big Spur. Talked a lot of the interview about South Carolina baseball and the struggles they had this past weekend against Clemson, but also definitely touched on the successes that they've had over the past couple of games in basketball and the women's softball team, which has just started out white hot, 19-0. That conversation with John coming your way next. Well, Tom from Somerville batting 500 on his predictions going into this past weekend of play. He said that South Carolina baseball was going to sweep Clemson and that South Carolina basketball was getting hot. Well, he was right about one of those two things, but to talk about both, we go to the phone lines and we're joined by John Whittle of thebigspur.com, writes for 24/7 Sports as well. Look him up on Twitter and go give him a follow at John M. Whittle. We appreciate your time today, John. Let's cut right to the chase. Is the Clemson series and the failure of the Bats Monty Lee's fault? Because we heard a lot of social media blame squarely on Monty Lee for just 15 hits against the Tigers. Or are Gamecock fans a little guilty of feeling themselves a little too much going into that series?
Well, I'll be honest. I don't know if either one of those two things are true. I that was a really bold prediction from whoever down in Somerville, thinking that it was going to be a South Carolina sweep. But at the end of the day, Monty deserves some criticism. He's been here for a while and recruited a bunch of these players, not all these players, but a bunch of these players, and had a hand in a lot of it. He's the hitting coach, and when you come out of a weekend, especially against your rival, people are going to be looking for someone to blame and a scapegoat. And when you don't perform well, and he's as good a guy as any, I guess. He definitely has a role in it. We'll see how things evolve as the season progresses with this team offensively, but certainly wasn't a good weekend. And Monty's going to have to wear it a little bit right now because, 15 hits, scoring runs, and 3 out of 27 innings are not good enough. And he's very highly paid, one of the highest paid assistant coaches, if not the highest paid assistant coach in the country. So when you have titles like that, you got to wear the negative that comes along with the positives too.
Hey, John, it's Cole. I want to ask you a question that kind of follows up that answer, because we've heard Paul Mainieri talk about Monty Lee and say things like, I've never seen a hitting coach work as hard with the hitters, with the players, as Monty Lee does. And then at the same time, we hear Paul Mainieri in the postgame presser on Sunday in a question you asked addressed the hitting woes. So where do you draw the line in terms of what Paul Mainieri said of eventually the players just have to step up and have clutch at bats versus placing blame on a coach?
Well, Paul Mainieri's been around this thing for a while. When I say this thing, I mean the sport of college baseball. So he's been around a lot of good coaches. He's got a better eye for it than basically anybody out there. Certainly me being in that category. So I'm gonna trust in him that he believes in Monty Lee as a great hitting coach. And there are a lot of people out there who think that he's invited all across the country to speak at whatever college baseball convention or whatever baseball convention about hitting. He was hired by the Dodgers in that time in between leaving Clemson and coming to South Carolina as a hitting coach in the Dodgers organization. Like he's respected at every level. So there's something there to him, and this team has certainly not been good enough offensively, even beyond this past weekend. This season so far, and Monty's recruited some of these guys, and a lot of these guys, and it's a lot of the burden goes on him. But at the same time, he isn't the one standing in the batter's box and taking pitches, swinging at pitches, not making good enough contact. I'm of the opinion that they had some good at-bats on Friday night. Saturday and Sunday were much less competitive. Really disappointing weekend for those guys.
John, as bad as anemic as hitting was over the weekend, starting pitching looked pretty good. I mean, McCoy was phenomenal on Saturday. The problem that South Carolina is going to face is, number one, you got to bring that hitting up, and you got to do it with some guys that are not usually going to be tasked all that often. Some early injuries really putting this team behind the 8 ball with the injury with Kennedy Jones, the injury with Talmadge LaCroix. So who's going to have to step up and be big for them, and what is your confidence level in that ability?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's some answers to figure out there too that aren't particularly obvious, and the first thing they got to figure out, and they may know, and I just don't know it yet, exactly how long some of these guys are going to be out. If LaCroix's only out a couple of games, and it's okay. If Kenny Jones is only out a couple of games, it's okay. But they're going to have to figure out, regardless of their health, what the best lineup is. They are going to put Bo Hollins into the lineup tonight at first base and move Ethan Petrie out to right field. So, that bolsters some things. I think think Bo Hollins has a tremendously high ceiling, but it's going to take there's going to be a few growing pains there offensively. There's going to be a few strikeouts and so forth that you're going to have to endure. But the kid's got some power, and I think that he is going to be pretty good and could be this year too. So he's one guy I circle, but there's guys who have to step up and play better who are supposed to be in the starting lineup. I look at Henry Kazmir as the guy that they've got to get going. Starting shortstop, he was the big transfer portal get in the cycle for the Gamecocks, and he was really good in the fall. He was good in the preseason. It hadn't translated yet into the regular season from an offensive standpoint. Really good defensively, but he's a two-hole hitter, and that's where they need him. That's what they need him to be. You look at what South Carolina's doing offensively, and I don't think I've seen this before. A dozen games into the season, you have three guys hitting 400 or better. You got no guys in the 300s. Everybody else is below 300, apart from Ethan Petrie, Nathan Hall, and Jace Warda, who are all 400 or above. So, you're either got a guy at the plate who's been pretty good, or you've got a guy at the plate who's been pretty bad. And they got to get some guys. They got to get some guys going. And Henry Kazmir's one that I think really needs to step up, and Nolan Naraki as well.
And, John, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Henry was in the lineup Sunday against Clemson, which is interesting because I believe it was after the Milwaukee series last weekend. We were talking about Henry in postgame with Pulmonary, about his confidence and, how he's gotten better from fall camp to now and the overall team confidence. Do you think it's a confidence issue for South Carolina at the plate, or would you put your finger elsewhere?
I don't know that it's a confidence issue. It shouldn't be, at this early stage of the season. I mean, I think there's a variety of things going on with some different people. They've been working on some things with Kazmir specifically from a mechanical standpoint. I do think Nolan Naraki was kind of domed up, this past weekend going against his old team. Nathan Hall seemed to shake it off, fairly well. Nolan Naraki did not. But they got to get some of the right guys in there too, who are being productive. And one name I should have mentioned a minute ago was Jordan Carrion. To me, he needs to be in the lineup somewhere. He can play second, short, third. He can play any of those spots at a high level. He's not a guy who's going to put a whole lot of juice into the baseball, but he is going to give you a good at bat, and that's something that South Carolina needs right now.
Talking to John Whittle from the Big Spur on the show right now. At John M. Whittle on X is where you can find him. South Carolina gets their second SEC conference win of the season in basketball by just absolutely shutting down a Calipari-led Arkansas team to the tune of, I think, just 14 first-half points. They got big-time minutes from Jordan Butler and Morris Ugasuk off the bench in that game, but the story was Colin Murray Boyles, and he was just on another level. What was the message from Lamont Paris before that game, and how has that message changed to his team after that game, after finally just kind of cracking the code and keeping this team engaged despite having so many woes in the conference play?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there can be much of a message right now, except you just got to go out there and compete and play to the best of your ability. I mean, you're not really playing for anything at this point, right? Like, I mean, you aren't playing to get into an NIT or an NCAA tournament or anything like that. You're just trying to go out there and compete for pride. Another thing that is probably a little bit more subconscious for these guys is they're probably competing to be back on the roster next year. There's going to have to be some transition to get some guys through the NCAA transfer portal. And I mean, if you want to make a strong impression on your coaching staff with the way you're playing. If you've cashed it in, at this point in the season, then, there's a good chance that you're going to be looking to for another school, in a month or so. So, I think that's the biggest deal for these guys. And the message is just to go out there, keep competing, keep playing hard, and, try to win as many games as you can.
John, I want to go back to something that you said a few minutes ago, and it kind of relates to something that one of our listeners brought up yesterday, going back to baseball for a second. You said that you couldn't really remember a time where the lineup was below 300 like it is now. A listener called in yesterday and asked us if we can, or if he can, and South Carolina fans can, and it was JD, I believe it was, who was asking if Gamecock fans can still place blame on Mark Kingston and his recruiting, and obviously Monty was still on staff, but when you talk about the inability to get timely hitting over the weekend and getting swept by Clemson, in your mind, how much of that's still on the past staff?
I mean, you can always figure out a way to place blame on pretty much anybody you want to for whatever reason, right? Like that's the way the world works at this point. But I mean, you look at the guys who have been productive, and some of these guys are Kingston players, and some of the guys are not. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to figure it out. To me, is more about, okay, what's the talent level like? Are these guys performing up to their capabilities? I think several of these guys are performing below their capabilities at this point. Mark Kingston's not the coach right now. You got to look back or you got to look at who's coaching them now, and that's, to me, where the blame goes on the guys who aren't playing up to their capabilities. Now, if their talent level isn't high enough, that goes on who brought them in, and there's an element of that in here too. Is some of these guys just may not be quite good enough, and that falls ultimately on the head coach at that time, but certainly some on the guys who recruited them and brought them in as well. And we can't forget that there's more than one assistant coach on the staff beyond Monty Lee. So there's plenty of blame to go around, and I could sit here and make an argument for anybody as to who's most to blame. It's just how people want to perceive it.
John, we have what I like to think is a pretty active chat on our video live stream. It's kind of a show within a show. There's always something wild happening over there. Yesterday, there was a pretty heated debate about the calendar year series between Clemson and South Carolina and how they were performing in the major sports. And nobody really put a whole lot of respect on the South Carolina softball team that is off to a white-hot start this season, and my God, I mean, they are seemingly unbeatable. Now it's about to get real with a 3-game series on the road at number 2 Oklahoma, coming up this weekend. How big? Can you give us a vibe of how big the energy around the softball program and team is at South Carolina, and if it feels like it's on the verge of becoming a major sport there in Columbia?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and I could say, if South Carolina being ranked where they are and or having the wins that they have, like if it were all against like South Carolina's baseball schedule, like that, it might be a little bit of fool's gold. But they went up to play Duke, a top 10 team in the country, and swept them. They took 2 from Virginia earlier this year in a tournament too. So they've and one from North Carolina as well. So they've played some decent competition and gone out there and gotten the job done. But, I fully expected Ashley Chastain Woodard to be really good here. South Carolina hasn't been above 500 in the SEC, but one time there's 2 times when I think it was 15 years that Beverly Smith was here. I did not think that they would flirt with 500 in the SEC this year, and they still may not because the league's so dang good. But she's got the program going a lot quicker than I thought she had the opportunity to do. They've developed a couple of pitchers and they play really good defense. And those who follow softball know that if you've got a couple of really good pitchers and you can play some defense behind them, you're going to beat them pretty much every game. And then it's a matter of figuring out, how to score just a couple of runs to support them. And, they got a bopper in the lineup in Ariana Rodi, and they've got a great leadoff hitter in Quincy Lilio, who last I looked, I haven't looked at the stats here recently, but last I looked, her on-base percentage was up about 650 from the leadoff spot. So she's been awesome. I would imagine it dropped a little bit coming out of the Duke series, but she's been awesome. And they've played well, and there's confidence there. And I've been around to see a few games, and they just have a little bit of an aura about them. But you're right, the real season kind of gets going this weekend when they have to go out to Oklahoma, and that's the toughest ask in that sport, is to go to Oklahoma and play a 3-game series against the Sooners. So they got prepared a little bit this past weekend at Duke, and I guess it's a really big deal this weekend to be out in Norman.
John, as we let you go, we always appreciate your time, but as we part ways today, can you give Gamecock fans out there in the upstate today, Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, wherever Tolos may be listening, a sense of calming peace as you go, because there's a lot of frustration, a lot of panic from getting swept by their bitter rival. But, it's a long season, right? And you and I were talking about Sunday after the post-game presser how Clemson swept before, but South Carolina's had the last laugh. Why, in your mind, do you think all could be just okay here in a few months for the Gamecocks?
I don't know. I'm probably not the right person to ask that right now. Like, I'm of the opinion that when you play that poorly and get that embarrassed by your rival, you should have some strong feelings. And I don't blame any South Carolina fan for having some strong feelings about where the program is right now. But to your point, it is still a long season. It's 14 weeks, and this is week 3. Just finished week 3. And, there is a long way to go. But you saw this past weekend that there's so much that's got to be better. It's a little bit discouraging to watch how South Carolina played. But at the same time, they have hopefully been able to identify some weaknesses, figured out how to correct some of that, coach it up a little bit better. I'm sure they've figured out some changes that need to be made. Got to get a couple of guys healthy again, and then go from there. But we have seen South Carolina teams that have performed really poorly in that series and gone on to be really good in the past. And you hope that's the way it is this time. You've got a proven winner in the dugout on the top step. That wasn't necessarily the case for the past head coach. He wasn't really a proven winner anywhere, but Paul Mainieri is. So if you've got a strong leader there, you can fight through some adversity and get on the right track. And I do think that there's enough talent on this roster to be very competitive in the SEC. So there were some good things coming out of the weekend from a pitching standpoint, some things that need to be addressed, but I do think that there is enough talent in that clubhouse to be competitive in the league. Not competitive from a championship standpoint, but
bad news for Gamecock fans as South Carolina is down at the half to Georgia. The Bulldogs, who haven't been very good this year either, lead South Carolina 40-29 currently. Jack Veltri reporting there at the game in Colonial Life Arena. The Gamecocks shooting 34.4% from the floor. Diesel, they went the last 2 minutes and 45 seconds without a field goal. Not good.
No, when you go on long scoring droughts, you tend to lose.
Tend to lose games, that's right. And Clemson, upstate, happening right now at Fluor Field in Greenville. It's scoreless, no score there. And we'll see. We'll see if the Gamecocks can get a win on the diamond tonight. So it should be a lot of fun. Tolos, we will see you tomorrow, and a big-time guest, Dawn Staley, Diesel. How about that?
Huge guest. She's coming up at 5 o'clock tomorrow, leading into SEC women's tournament play. They get a little bit of a break. Obviously, we'll find out, exactly how they plan on spending that extra time if they get a double bye into the quarterfinals. Is that right?
That's right.
Double
bye, baby.
Extra time off, strategy, rest, all of the above. We'll talk to Dawn Staley tomorrow at 5 o'clock right here on the Fan Upstate.